Chapter 701. After ordering the clan tribe to be on standby for the time being, Lin Yuan frowned again. As a passive skill, Lin Yuan had always kept the Eye of the God active. He also added a lot of demonic energy to ensure that the entire Willow Rock Sea area was within the range of the Eye of the God. If there was any disturbance around, Lin Yuan would know immediately. Just when he contacted Jiao Yi, the Eye of the God noticed that there was a group of demonic beasts with a bloodline higher than his in the Willow Rock Sea area. Bloodline higher than his? What did that mean? Although Lin Yuan was not a real dragon, he was a pure flood dragon species. It was nothing in the Eldritch world. However, in the Tianwu continent, Lin Yuan's bloodline was definitely a superior species of the dragon clan. For example, Ao Qian, who came from an extraordinary background, was suspected to be the descendant of the Dragon King of the West Sea Dragon Palace. There was a real dragon bloodline in her bloodline, but the concentration was not high. In terms of bloodline, Lin Yuan's bloodline was higher than Ao Qian's. The ruler of the Willow Rock Sea area, which was the lobster, could not oppress Lin Yuan's bloodline. This meant that the lobster's bloodline was not as high as Lin Yuan's. A creature of this level could already establish its own tribe near the evil dragon pool. If it was in the era when the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas stood proudly in the Endless Sea, this lobster would definitely be one of the top nobles in the Endless Sea. Therefore, Lin Yuan was confident that his bloodline's level was not low. There were only two possibilities for a creature with a stronger bloodline to appear in the Willow Rock Sea area. Either these demonic beasts came from the higher-ups of the Sea Demon Guild, or they came from the Dragon Palace of the West Sea, or even the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Moreover, they appeared in the Willow Rock Sea area for him. Even if it was the former, Lin Yuan was sure that a demonic beast with such a strong bloodline was most likely a member of the Dragon Palace. This is troublesome. Lin Yuan closed his eyelids slightly and murmured in a low voice. He began to think about the possibility of running away. He really did not expect the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas to have such a sharp nose. If something were to happen and his real body was stuck in the Willow Stone Sea area, it would be a huge joke. The Great Yao of the Dragon Palace could not casually enter the Willow Stone region. Even if the West Sea Dragon Palace wanted to, they could send their troops to flatten the Willow Stone region at any time. However, the West Sea Dragon Palace dared not do so. When the Willow Rock Sea area fought against the West Sea Dragon Palace, their biggest advantage was that they were one of the subordinate species of the Dragon Palace. Now, more and more subordinate species were dissatisfied with the Dragon Palace. Even the news that the Endless Sea was going to change its master had spread like wildfire. If the Dragon Palace still maintained its previous attitude to deal with the demonic beasts in the Endless Sea, the only result would be that the fierce tiger would be devoured by the pack of wolves. Blood Lady and the Red Crab clan behind her were quickly wiped out. The main reason was that Blood Lady had attacked the evil dragon pool. Although the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas did not have the guts to attack the tribes of the Dragon Palace, it did not mean that anyone could challenge the authority of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. However, the Willow Rock Sea area was different. Although they had always been hostile to the West Sea Dragon Palace, they did not cross the bottom line of the Dragon Palace. Therefore, there was no problem for the two sides to attack each other. However, the West Sea Dragon Palace could not directly send troops to wipe out the Willow Rock Sea area. However, when it came to Lin Yuan and the Undersea Prison, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was not in a good mood. Lin Yuan did not even need to think to know that once his identity was exposed, the West Sea Dragon Palace would launch a series of storm-like pursuits to capture him. It would be extremely unfavorable for his next arrangement. Escape? Or, disguise as an ordinary demonic beast? These two ideas kept colliding in Lin Yuan's mind. If the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas still dared to fight against the Great Old Ones, Lin Yuan did not mind cooperating with them at all. Just like when he had just arrived in this world, the system had issued the task of unifying the Stoneclaw Forest. At that time, Lin Yuan had no choice but to start with the Hell difficulty. This time, although the task of eliminating the Great Old Ones would not give Lin Yuan any territorial rewards, the system's rewards were enough to make all the hosts go crazy. With the help of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, the difficulty of the task would definitely be greatly reduced. Otherwise, if he had to face the Great Old Ones alone who could force the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas to give up the Endless Sea, it would still be a hell difficulty start for Lin Yuan, who was alone with 1 dragon and 4 clan tribes. Mr. Hidden Dragon, your strength has attracted the attention of the higher-ups of the guild, so they sent experts to investigate you. Currently, the emissary has entered the Willow Rock Sea area. They hope that you can complete your preparations as soon as possible and report to the stronghold of the Sea Demon Guild. The octopus demonic beast that had met Lin Yuan before appeared again and gently knocked on Lin Yuan's door. Got it. Lin Yuan's eyes suddenly turned cold, then he opened his mouth to reply. Previously, the octopus demonic beast had sent an information form for Lin Yuan to fill in. Hidden Dragon was the codename he had given himself, and it was suitable for any situation where he needed to show his membership of the Sea Demon Guild. Moreover, it was not targeted at Lin Yuan alone. Almost all the Sea Demons would not use their real names to register as members of the Sea Demon Guild. Like most guilds, the Sea Demon Guild only provided missions for its members. The purpose of the client was never a problem that the Sea Demon Guild needed to consider. As long as the client could afford the price, the Sea Demon Guild would put the client's request on the mission board. Stealing treasures, plundering, assassinating, there were all kinds of missions that the Sea Demon Guild did not mind. After all, their position was absolutely neutral, and there would not be any innocent sea demons who would treat them as a righteous partner. The sea demons' world was incomparably cruel, and the sea demons who came out to be mercenaries were even more bloodthirsty. Who would care about good or evil? Even if the members of 2 sea demon guilds had different opinions on the same mission, the situation of the 2 sides killing each other had happened more than once. For example, one side wanted to assassinate the target, and the other side was ordered to protect the target. Even if the target was a good friend, at this time, they would not hesitate at all and directly kill each other. Therefore, there were no sea demons who filled in their real information, because that would only bring endless disaster to themselves and the clan behind them. The title of Hidden Dragon, Lin Yuan, was already the kind that could be found everywhere. Unworthy codenames such as Lord of the Four Seas, King of the Sea Demons, and so on were endless. Anyway, no one really cared about such things. After all, there were more than 1 or 2 Dragon King in those coastal areas, right? Because of a title, they started a massacre. Even if the dragon palaces of the Four Seas joined forces, they could not bear the consequences. Chapter 702. Lin Yuan took a deep breath. Lin Yuan slowly walked out of his room. His gaze paused for a moment on the octopus monster's face in the corridor, and a hint of doubt flashed in his eyes. Although it was the Siren Guild's higher-ups, their purpose was definitely not that simple. After all, he was a flood dragon. Even if he activated the golden body technique and turned his black scales into golden scales, it would still be the same. At least for now, he did not have any ability to disguise his bloodline aura. Therefore, an unknown but tyrannical flood dragon monster with tyrannical strength appeared in front of the Siren Guild's higher-ups. Those from the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas would never give up this opportunity to discover Lin Yuan. Therefore, so many monsters with tyrannical bloodlines came to the Willowstone Oceanic region. But what was more troublesome was that the octopus monster had suddenly appeared in the Siren Hotel. Lin Yuan, who had the Eye of God, had long discovered the appearance of those Dragon Palace monsters, so he could immediately make the choice of escaping this place or trying his luck to continue disguising himself. However, at this moment, the octopus monster had no intention of hiding from Lin Yuan. Instead, it had directly come to pick him up, which was equivalent to directly blocking his escape route and forcing him to go to the Siren Guild to face those Dragon Palace monsters. Want to leave now? Then he could only quickly kill the octopus monster and then escape to other oceanic regions to conceal his identity. Only through an irregular movement path could he possibly get rid of the pursuers behind him. The time required would definitely not be short. The 3 months of deployment time given by the system might not be enough for him to solve the problems at hand. Mr. Hidden Dragon wants to ask why I suddenly appeared in the Siren Hotel? The octopus monster looked at Lin Yuan with a human-like fake smile on its face. Its tentacle-like right hand snapped its fingers and then pointed to the counter on the first floor of the hotel. It said in a deep voice, "The Siren Hotel has so many arrays. Of course, there is also a simple two-way teleportation array. However, our guild's resources are limited. It is impossible to directly set up a teleportation array that can cross several oceanic regions like those big strongholds. This array can only maintain the short distance between the Siren Guild stronghold and the Siren Hotel." It seemed to have felt the killing intent from Lin Yuan's body. The octopus monster beast's gaze also became somewhat profound. Every Yao beast had their own secrets and did not like the feeling of being spied on. Thus, when they saw existences that suddenly appeared before them, they would show hostility. However, the killing intent emanating from Lin Yuan's body was somewhat excessive. It could even be said to be abnormal. One had to know that hostility and killing intent were two completely different things. "I see." Lin Yuan nodded at the octopus monster beast and didn't intend to continue this topic. Just like the octopus demonic beast could sense his killing intent, he could also hear something different from the octopus demonic beast's words. First of all, the Sea Demon Guild stronghold had a teleportation array that led directly to the Sea Demon Hotel. Once the time was up and the octopus monster beast hadn't brought Lin Yuan back to the Sea Demon Guild stronghold, then the Sea Demon Guild stronghold might send a combat team to hunt down Lin Yuan. Coupled with the demon beasts from the Dragon Palace, Lin Yuan wouldn't be able to escape even if he had wings. Even if Lin Yuan could kill his way through the Willow Stone Sea and escape, the Sea Demon Guild also had a teleportation array that could cross the sea. Their speed of travel was definitely much faster than Lin Yuan's physical body crossing the sea. Therefore, even if he could escape this time, a large number of teams would appear in the nearby sea to hunt down the flood dragon. Once he showed himself, he would be continuously hunted down. "You're very smart." Lin Yuan suddenly said something off-topic. Then, the corners of his mouth slightly parted as he said with a smile, "But I'm not the only one with a secret, right? What do you think?" As soon as his voice fell, the octopus monster beast's expression suddenly changed. It looked at Lin Yuan with obvious surprise in its eyes. Although Lin Yuan's existence was intentionally covered up by the West Sea Dragon Palace, some of the arrangements made by the West Sea Dragon Palace were directional. For example, Lin Yuan's current identity was just a wandering sea demon who might have big trouble behind him. As a result, after it was reported to the Sea Demon Guild, the higher-ups actually sent higher-ups to investigate Lin Yuan. Moreover, almost all of these higher-ups were from the Dragon Palace. This had indirectly confirmed that the trouble Lin Yuan was avoiding was from the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Although they didn't know what secrets Lin Yuan had, it was an indisputable fact that so many demon beasts from the Dragon Palace had come. Although the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was no longer awe-inspiring, they still had their pride. They might have to smile obsequiously to the higher-ups of the Sea Demon Guild, but to existences like the octopus monster beast, they wouldn't explain their motives at all. Through these details, the octopus monster beast could guess that the trouble behind Lin Yuan came from the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. It was indeed worthy of the evaluation of being smart. But knowing this, it still dared to appear in front of Lin Yuan. It was already gambling with its life. Therefore, Lin Yuan's evaluation of the octopus monster beast was only smart. "So, now, should I go with you to see those demon beasts from the Dragon Palace, or should you obediently make way and report that I left the Willow Stone waters for some matters and that my current whereabouts are unknown? You know, I'm not very stubborn. If something unexpected happens, I might say anything." Lin Yuan slightly tilted his head, the smile on his face becoming more and more ferocious. Although he hadn't been in the Willow Stone waters for long, less than a day so far, Lin Yuan still noticed some clues when he observed the movements in the Willow Stone waters with the eye of God. For example, the position of the octopus monster beast in the Willow Stone division of the Sea Demon Guild was not high. It was just a receptionist to welcome newcomers, but its power in the Willow Stone waters was not low. When there was no one around, its nominal superiors were respectful to the octopus monster beast, as if the status of both sides had been completely reversed. In addition, all the matters in the Willowstone waters that the Sea Demon Guild was responsible for seemed to be performing their own duties, but in fact, they were all decided by the octopus monster beast. As long as it said no, it was no. Therefore, this octopus monster beast definitely had a secret, and it was a big secret. After the expression on the octopus monster beast's face was slightly stagnant, it recovered its professional fake smile and said indifferently, "Secrets exist for all creatures, it's just a matter of whether it's big or small. What's more, a secret is no longer a secret. Instead of doing these disgusting things, I prefer not to pursue it. Just like how most of the sea monsters' hands are stained with blood, even if we know, we won't leak it. After all, we are a guild, not the law enforcement department of the Dragon Palace. As long as we cooperate well, who cares about other things? Then, I wish us a happy cooperation in advance." The smile on Lin Yuan's face also seemed to become a professional fake smile. Chapter 703. I believe that we can work together happily, Mr. Blackjow. The octopus wrapped its 2 tentacles in front of its chest and said with a smile, "In exchange, I can tell you my name, Horace Robin." Horace Robin? When he first heard this name, Lin Yuan's eyes showed a hint of confusion. But soon after, Lin Yuan's confusion turned into shock, and even some suspicion. A name was a creature's code name. A resounding name was equivalent to a magnificent resume. Just like when Chow Chow was mentioned, others would associate him with the Prime Minister, the Emperor of Great Wei, Lover, Cough. Currently, Lin Yuan had a bit of fame in the Sky Martial continent. For example, the Blackwater Dragon King, the Northern Frontiers God, the Mad Python, and so on. Most of the names that came from outside the northern frontier were belittling and ridiculing him. But if Lin Yuan was placed in the Endless Sea, he was just a nameless existence. Other than the 4 Seas dragon race that wanted to escape the Endless Sea and ascend to the Sky Martial continent, almost no demonic beasts had heard of his name. At most, they only had a slight impression, and it was not deep. The name Horus was the same in the Sky Martial continent. But if it was placed in the Endless Sea, it would be like thunder to the ears. The most famous demonic beasts in the ocean were array masters, illusionists, weapon refiners, and alchemists. They also dabbled in miscellaneous arts such as mechanisms. If one were to find an existence that could be mentioned in the same breath as Lin Yuan, it would be someone like Gue Guzi, who had learned a lot and was proficient in everything. But compared to Gue Guzi, who was both righteous and evil, Horus was more evil and narrower. Gue Guzi liked to use the world as a chessboard and heroes as chess pieces. He cultivated outstanding disciples to join the vassal states that were fighting fiercely for hegemony. He controlled the fate and survival of the vassal states, and even pushed the direction of history. Horus was the same, but different from Gue Guzi. He liked to control the fate of other living beings. Unlike Gue Guzi, who treated all living beings as chess pieces, he really liked to obtain pleasure from this kind of thing. Therefore, Gue Guzi was a great academic scholar who could stand side by side with Laozi and Confucius. He was the strategist saint who was loved and hated by all the feudal lords of the Spring and Autumn dynasties. On the other hand, Horus was just a villain who was hated by everyone in the Endless Sea. Wherever Horus appeared, it wouldn't take long for the people to be wiped out by the flames of war. If he was exposed to the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas, he would probably have to flee with Lin Yuan. The only difference was that Lin Yuan was being hunted, while he was being hunted. If you really are Horus, I think we'll have a great time working together. When his voice fell, Lin Yuan's eyes curved slightly, like a pair of crescent moons. Please. Horus took a step back, revealing a milky white screen of light behind him. Lin Yuan twisted his body and entered the light curtain. Horus also followed closely behind and entered the light curtain. At the other side, 7 dragon bloodline demon beasts of different forms gathered in the Sea Demon Guild. They sat around a wooden table with all kinds of underwater delicacies on it, but the 7 dragon bloodline demon beasts didn't even look at them. Those sea demon beasts who weren't strong enough only glanced at the 7 demon beasts from afar, then turned their heads and walked out of the Sea Demon Guild. The atmosphere today was obviously much more solemn. After all, they were mercenaries who licked blood from the edge of their blades. Their eyes were the most important. Those vile images that looked down on others only existed in stories, used to raise the image of the protagonist. Which mercenary in reality didn't have sharp eyes? They could tell who they could mess with and who they couldn't mess with at a glance. Naturally, they wouldn't stay here and cause trouble for themselves. The few that stayed were not pure idiots, nor were they here to watch the show. They also predicted that something big would happen next, and wanted to see if they could join in and create some benefits for themselves. These demon beasts were very confident in their own strength. If they succeeded, they would be called bold. If they didn't succeed, they wouldn't hear how the outside world would judge them for being stupid. I say, second brother, isn't it just a Jiao dragon? Is there a need to mobilize so many people? A demon beast that was almost the same as a human, but had blue gills on both cheeks, looked at the 6 dragon bloodline demon beasts sitting beside him and asked helplessly. Originally, inspecting Lin Yuan was only its task. It did not know what happened to the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas. They actually sent a total of 5 members of the 9 sons of Long Jiuzi, and even the second-ranked Yi came. Jiao dragon species, heterochromatic eyes, the strength of a river lord. It's completely the same as that black Jiao. We have to be careful. You know, this guy is related to the aberrant. Even that idiot Chunyo was defeated by this black Jiao. Do you think you can beat Chunyo? The one who spoke was a demon beast that had a human figure but a dragon head. The 4 claws that were exposed were not human. Instead, they looked like the claws of a tiger or leopard. The blue-bearded demon beast was speechless. After a while, he said in a muffled voice, although Chunyo was defeated, I heard that he was defeated by the aberrant. It has nothing to do with that black Jiao, right? Furthermore, Chunyo wasn't at his peak at that time. If he had more than 50% of his strength, the Dragon Palace wouldn't have allowed him to retreat from the front line. Speaking of this, the blue-bearded demon beast paused and added, I'm not trying to pick on you, but this time, the Dragon Palace is really making a big fuss. They sent 7 of their dragon sons. God knows how many holes there will be on the battlefield for the aberrant to take advantage of. When we go back, I don't know how many people will die. Second brother frowned. He stared at the blue-bearded demon beast and said, making a big fuss? I don't need 3 moves to kill you, but Chunyo can suppress me for 200 years. Even if he is seriously injured and can't use 50% of his strength, killing you is as easy as flipping his hand. Even he was defeated. If that guy is really the Black Jiao, do you think you can go back alive? Speaking of this, second brother changed the topic and said coldly, how can you be sure that the aberrant who killed Chunyo has nothing to do with the Black Jiao? It is not by the Black Jiao's side right now. The blue-bearded demon beast pursed his lips but didn't dare to refute. Although they were one of the 9 sons of the dragon, Chunyo and Yazi were indeed very special existences. It could even be said that since Chunyo and Yazi were chosen as the 9 sons of the dragon 200 years ago, the other 7 sons of the dragon had more or less been replaced by new ones. However, these 2 firmly occupied the first and second positions of the 9 sons of the dragon. Whether it was the other 9 sons of the dragon or the aberration, none of them could threaten their lives and positions. Chapter 704. He's here. Without waiting for the blue-cheeked beast to continue speaking, Yazi's face flashed with hostility as it spoke in a deep voice. As his voice faded, the remaining 6 members of the Dragon 9 Sons all stood up and coldly stared at the teleportation light screen that had suddenly appeared. Looking at their slightly bulging muscles, one could tell that if there were any abnormalities, they would directly attack the existence on the other side of the light screen. Lord Yazi, this is the registrant I reported earlier. You can call him the Hidden Dragon. The first to walk out of the light screen was Cyrus. At this moment, there was a faint smile on its twisted octopus face. Unknowingly, a strange fragrance spread in the Siren Guild's inn. If one did not distinguish it carefully, it would be easy to mix this fragrance with the fragrance of wine. However, at this moment, the 7 dragon sons were in a state of high tension, so the slightest abnormality immediately alerted them. As Yazi's expression changed, the 7 dragon sons all took out their weapons and looked at Cyrus with a gloomy expression. Cyrus's expression did not change at all. It smiled and waved its tentacles, saying indifferently, "My lords, there's no need to have such a big reaction. This is drunken whale fragrance." Among the 9 dragon sons, a petite demon beast with long purple hair but the face of a worm dragon frowned slightly and interrupted Cyrus. "You know your stuff." As expected of Lord Fu Shi. Cyrus murmured and gave the purple-haired dragon a thumbs up before obediently shutting its mouth. Fu Shi's expression turned cold as she said in a cold voice, "When you left, you didn't have the smell of drunken whale fragrance on you. You didn't deliberately dress up, did you?" "As far as I know, drunken whale fragrance has a strong hallucinogenic effect. In ancient times, the weak monsters developed this thing in order to hunt the descendants of the whale clan, the overlord of the sea." "What are you trying to do?" "Lord Fu Shi, please don't misunderstand. When I arrived at the Siren Inn, His Excellency the Hidden Dragon had something to deal with, so he asked me to wait for a while. I thought that I would be meeting you later, so I deliberately sprayed some drunken whale fragrance, hoping to leave a good impression on you. The current overlords of the Endless Sea are the Dragon Clan of the 4 Seas. Even the Whale Clan, which used to flourish in the past, is nothing but a bunch of clay chickens and pottery dogs in front of the Dragon Clan of the 4 Seas. This drunken whale fragrance has a miraculous effect on them, but it has no effect on the demon beasts of other clans." Cyrus waved its hand gently. Cyrus's skin was visibly flushed, as if it was a little scared and a little shy. "I'm afraid that's not the case." The blue-bearded demon beast held a 16-sided prismatic hammer in each of his hands and said coldly, "The drunken whale fragrance is indeed only effective on demon beasts with the bloodline of the whale clan. However, as long as the formula is slightly changed, the drunken whale fragrance will become another kind of drug. It is a hallucinogen that is effective on any creature. Combined with illusionary techniques, it can achieve astonishing control effects." Speaking of this, the blue-bearded monster changed the topic and said coldly, "What are you trying to do?" "Haha." Cyrus let out a hollow laugh and did not reply. Instead, he silently moved to the side and made space for Zhang Heng. Immediately, Lin Yuan, covered in golden scales, slowly walked out of the teleportation light curtain. Yazi sized up Lin Yuan and said coldly, "Black Jiao, put away your camouflage. Even if the scales on your body have turned golden, your special eyes can't fool us." "Pfft," Lin Yuan sneered and shook his head. He said casually, "Camouflage? That's not the case. I never thought that I could fool you. Just like you said, my appearance can only fool some ocean demon beasts that don't have access to the secrets. Just with this pair of eyes, the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas can recognize me. So I was wondering whether I should try my luck or fight my way out. It seems that you are not very lucky." Fu Zui shook his right hand and held an iron folding fan in his hand. He said casually, "You probably didn't expect that the Guild of Sea Demons would have to go through the vetting process after you joined, did you? If it weren't for the fact that your background is unknown and the Guild of Sea Demons reported your information to us, it would have been really difficult for us to catch you after you got the Guild seal." This did not mean that the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas could not find Lin Yuan after he became a member of the Siren Guild. However, Lin Yuan was in Willow Rock waters, after all. The native forces here were at odds with the Dragon Palaces of the 4 Seas. In addition, the Siren Guild was also a force that the Dragon Palaces of the 4 Seas were wary of. If Lin Yuan was determined to stay here, even the Dragon Palaces of the 4 Seas wouldn't be able to forcibly take him away. After all, that would be equivalent to declaring war on both Willow Rock waters and the Siren Guild. The Dragon Palaces of the 4 Seas couldn't afford to add insult to injury. "No, I'm very lucky." Lin Yuan grinned, revealing a sinister smile, and said in a deep voice, "Because I thought of a third option." The 7 members of the 9 sons of the Dragon Clan were confused. The most bad-tempered blue-bearded beast snorted coldly and said with a sullen face, "I advise you to surrender." You know what you mean to the dragon palaces of the four seas. As long as you cooperate with us obediently, we can still entertain you, the ruler of the northern frontier, with good food and drinks. What if I don't? Lin Yuan tilted his head and asked with a puzzled expression. Then don't blame us for not holding back. We'll cripple you and bring you back. Fu Qian waved the iron folding fan in his hand and said with a hint of mockery, why do you have to do that? We're all dragon bloodline beasts and should be as close as a family. As long as you cooperate with us, the dragon clan of the four seas will be your backing. It's better than being a local tyrant struggling to survive, right? At this point, Fu Qian paused, glanced at Cyrus, and said indifferently, besides, we've seen through your little trick. The drunken whale fragrance won't work on us. Who said that the drunken whale fragrance will be used on you? Cyrus, who had been acting like a lackey before, suddenly grinned, revealing a sinister smile that was not inferior to Lin Yuan's. He said coldly, for the smooth performance of the script, the 7 of you must stay clear-headed. Otherwise, this show won't be able to continue. The 7 sons of the dragon clan looked puzzled at the same time. They could not tell what was going on in the octopus beast's mind. He was just a receptionist of a small guild. Even if he killed him, it would be for nothing. Now that Lin Yuan had been exposed and their little trick had failed, if this octopus beast said that he was coerced by Lin Yuan, there would still be a chance of survival, right? Chapter 705. However, this octopus monster did the exact opposite. Was it not Lin Yuan who was at a disadvantage, but the 7 of them? What kind of joke was this? Putting aside the fact that there was an intermediate Demon King stage Z, the other 6 members of the Dragon 9 Sons were also early Demon Kings. Moreover, they were all titled Demon Kings. Ordinary intermediate Demon Kings might not be a match for them. The Black Jiao was only a late Demon King. No matter how powerful he was only a half-Demon King. Could it be that if they really fought, they would be the ones to lose? The Dragon Palace of the Four Seas declared war on the outer sea monsters. Even the Sea Monster Guild was included in the attack. The Golden Shrimp Clan in the Willow Rock Sea and the Red Crab Clan in the Hazy Sea were all annihilated. Also, the Sea Monster Guild stronghold in the Willow Rock Sea was destroyed. A large number of guild members died in battle. Under the combined efforts of the 7 Dragon Sons, all the resistance forces were annihilated. A total of 3 Demon Kings died in battle, including the Willow Rock Sea's master, the guardian of the Willow Rock Sea, and the head of the Sea Monster Guild in the Willow Rock Sea. Only a few survivors escaped and complained about the atrocities of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. What do the 7 lords think of this script? The corners of Cyrus's mouth were wide open, and the smile on its face was sickly. As a freak who liked to control the fate of other creatures and watch them get annihilated under its own arrangements, Cyrus was really having fun at this moment. These were the 7 Dragon Sons. The top battle sequence of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. If they couldn't come up with a reasonable explanation, the entire Dragon Palace of the Four Seas would be kicked out of the Sea Monster Guild. Then, the outer sea monsters would join forces with the escaped evil dragon and the Sea Monster Guild to declare war on the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. The entire endless sea would be engulfed in the flames of war. This could be said to be the biggest game Cyrus had ever played since it became famous. Don't even think about it. Fu Shi's expression changed. He roared and pounced forward. Patter. Cyrus snapped his fingers and stepped back into the teleportation screen, leaving behind a drawn-out voice. I've already said before that the drunken whale incense is not to be used on the 7 of you. Now that you know the script, I'm sure the 7 of you know how to cooperate with the performance, right? As soon as it finished speaking, the remaining monsters in the Sea Monster Guild all pounced on the Dragon Sons with bloodshot eyes. Even Negative Centipede, who had the fastest reaction, was intercepted by the 4 Peak River Lord level monsters and failed to break through the teleportation light screen to intercept Cyrus. Although the 4 monsters were no match for Negative Centipede, it was already over by the time Negative Centipede finished the battle. Lin Yuan and Cyrus stepped into the teleportation light screen. Bastard. Don't let me know who you are. Fu Qian cursed loudly, his expression ugly to the extreme. Was a dragon palace of the four seas was a dragon son Cyrus. Cyrus was the dragon palace. Cyrus's of? Cyrus was. Cyrus was? Of? Lin Yuan did not plan to cooperate from the beginning. However, he did not plan to do it himself this time. In their perception, more and more demonic beasts began to rush to the battlefield. Although there was a mix of good and bad demonic beasts, there were still quite a number of demonic beasts with some strength. As the number increased, even if the 9 sons of the Dragon clan worked together, there was still a lot of pressure. In the name of the Supreme Honorable, I'm here to proclaim the name of my master. My master's name is Cyrus Robin. You mortals like to call him Virtuoso. A controlled sea monster at the level of a river lord roared. It then recited the lines that Cyrus had prepared for it with a fervent expression. As soon as it finished speaking, the sea monster was hammered into a pile of minced meat by the blue-bearded monster. The 7 dragon sons stood back to back, on guard against the increasing number of attackers. The blue-bearded monster clenched its teeth and said coldly, "Cyrus, that bastard. I was wondering why we couldn't catch that loach." It turned out that it secretly joined the Sea Monster Guild and was hiding in the Willow Rock waters. We're in big trouble this time. Cyrus didn't know how long they had been setting up this place, but it was certain that the monsters gathered here weren't simply controlled by the drunken whale incense and an illusion. Ordinary methods wouldn't be able to wake them up. Now, they could either fight their way out or be trapped here until they died. As for capturing one alive, waiting for its control to be released, and then using it to proclaim the truth, it probably would not work at all. Cyrus, whose notoriety had spread throughout the Endless Sea, was known as the Virtuoso. In terms of intelligence, it was definitely one of the top sequences in the Endless Sea. Naturally, it was impossible for it not to figure out such a simple countermeasure. Therefore, it was obvious that either this control method could not be released at all, or they could not take anyone alive. Those survivors were probably one of the backup plans that Cyrus had arranged. Once the incident here broke out, it would immediately spread throughout the Endless Sea. Even if all 7 of them died here, they would have to bear the blame for it. The 7 dragon sons did not stay on the battlefield against the Great Old Ones. Instead, they appeared in the Willow Rock waters, which had always been at odds with the Dragon Palace. This matter could not be explained. Even if the existence of the Black Jiao was used as an explanation, the Sea Monster Guild would be dissatisfied and would quickly realize that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was planning to escape. When that happened, the Sea Monster Guild would probably take action personally and directly capture or kill Lin Yuan. They would block the escape route that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas had arranged and force the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas to fight to the death with the Great Old Ones. This was in line with the common interests of most of the monsters in the Endless Sea. Since death was meaningless, no one would be willing to die. However, if they killed their way out, they would inevitably encounter the heavyweights of the Willow Rock waters. Even if they showed mercy, it would be meaningless. The controlled monsters were unreasonable and would fight to the death as soon as they met. Even if they showed mercy, they would have to beat the other party until they could not stand up. At that time, even if they did not attack, there would be other backup plans that Cyrus had arranged to kill these heavyweights and pour a basin of dirty water on the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Think of a way to break through quickly and go back to discuss countermeasures with the Dragon King. Yazi also showed the aura of a leader at this moment and said in a deep voice, "Don't show mercy. If you are caught, immediately self-destruct. Don't leave your body in the hands of the other party. At that time, you can still say that it's not our dragon sons. Otherwise, if Cyrus catches evidence, you will never be able to clear your name." Chapter 706. Cyrus was probably the only one who knew how long it had been hiding in the Willow Rock waters. After controlling the higher-ups of the Willow Rock waters through various means, Cyrus did not act immediately. Instead, it quietly operated the Willow Rock Waters. On the surface, it was a receptionist of the Willow Rock Waters branch of the Siren Guild, but in fact, it was the ruler of the entire waters. This was also the reason why Lin Yuan previously discovered that regardless of strength or status, all the higher-ups of the Willow Rock Waters were wary of Cyrus. This operation was not because Cyrus had changed its nature. It was because the Willow Rock Waters was too special. It was not far from the Sin Dragon Pool, and its strength was not weak. In addition, the Willow Rock Waters had always been at odds with the West Sea Dragon Palace. It was simply the best hiding place for all the sirens who had a grudge against the West Sea Dragon Palace. As a matter of fact, the reason the Willow Rock Sea area was able to take root here was because of the demon beasts that shared a border with the West Sea Dragon Palace and even the Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas. It was because of these demon geniuses that the lobster was qualified to challenge the West Sea Dragon Palace. In the beginning, the Willow Rock Waters were only dissatisfied with the West Sea Dragon Palace. Later on, the conflict between the Willow Rock Waters and the West Sea Dragon Palace had become a strategy for survival. Once the Willow Rock Waters submitted to the West Sea Dragon Palace, the sirens who had a grudge against the Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas would immediately leave the Willow Rock Waters even if they did not rebel against the lobster. By then, the strength of the entire waters would rapidly decline. In addition to the past grudges, even if the West Sea Dragon Palace did not suppress the Willow Rock Waters, the surrounding sirens would not let go of this fat piece of meat. Over time, the Willow Rock Waters had become a thorn in the flesh of the West Sea Dragon Palace that could not be removed. The biggest advantage of setting up here was that they could wait for an opportunity. For example, there was a great possibility of provoking the Siren Guild to be hostile to the Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas. It could even lead to an all-out war, directly damaging the Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas, or even destroying the Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas, a powerful force that had dominated the Endless Sea for many years. It was like a gambler who always wanted to bet big. As a master of fortune, Cyrus always wanted to plan a tragic war that would affect the entire Endless Sea. After a long period of operation, the Willowstone Sea area had become stronger day by day, but there had never been a suitable opportunity. When Lin Yuan appeared, Cyrus was like a shark that smelled blood. It immediately exposed its ferocious side and broke out all its trump cards and reserves. The 7 sons of the Dragon King were trapped in a quagmire, unable to extricate themselves. Cyrus, on the other hand, was able to easily stay out of the matter and become a spectator watching the show. So, what exactly are you after? Lin Yuan glanced sideways at the excited Cyrus and asked in a low voice. He always felt that there was something wrong with this guy's brain. It was not the kind of mental retardation, but more like a mental illness. Even Lin Yuan had to admit that the play was arranged and directed by Cyrus, and he was just a cameo in the play. Moreover, he was only a minor character who left after a few lines. Of course, he was useful. But if it were any other demon beast in his position, as long as the conditions were right, they could have done the same thing easily. However, it was one thing to admit Cyrus's ability, and another to like it or not. For example, if a transmigrator entered a low-level martial arts world and became a feudal lord, and also obtained a system that allowed them to summon civil and military officials, when choosing a strategist, most people would choose those with good reputations, such as Zhuge Liang and Guo Jia. It didn't matter whether it was an open scheme or a conspiracy. However, no one would like people like Gue Guzi and Yao Guangxiao to become their advisors and strategize. Such advisors were too restless. Although they did not have the ambition to ascend the throne, they liked to go against the heavens and change fate. They treated the world as a chessboard and used heroes as chess pieces to play. They implicated many people who could have lived a peaceful life and burned the flames of war to places that should not be ignited by the flames of war. Cyrus was such an existence. However, compared to people like Gue Guzi and Yao Guangxiao, it was at most a third-rate character. Gue Guzi used people as chess pieces and controlled the fate of a country. Yao Guangxiao started the game with a bad hand and played Emperor Yongla, while Cyrus could only hide behind the scenes and fan the flames. Although it guided the situation, it still depended on luck whether it would succeed. There was no need to elaborate on how big the gap was. For what? Well, for fame, of course. Cyrus was stunned by Lin Yuan's question. It paused for a moment and then said with a smile, "You and I are not mortals. Mortals only live once, and those who are capable want to live forever. Unfortunately, my talent is not good enough. My cultivation base has reached the limit of Demon King. It is not a problem for me to live for thousands of years. Immortality is too far away from me, so I can only seek immortality through other means." Lunatic. Lin Yuan curled his lips and did not comment on Cyrus's words. "It doesn't matter if I'm a madman or a villain, I still have a reputation. 1,000 years later, maybe I'll be dead, but when the mortals talk about history, they can't ignore the existence of certain creatures. My goal is to become one of them. If I live my life in mediocrity, even if my cultivation base is unparalleled and unmatched, so what? Times were always changing. Only the existence that pushed the direction of history could be called immortal. Otherwise, who could prove that your existence was not made up in a story? I don't want to be a mediocre person, so I want to ignite the flames of war in the entire endless sea. I want everyone who mentions my name to be afraid, and I want countless later generations to know that Cyrus Robin once existed in this world." Cyrus's lips curled up slightly as it said with a smile. Lin Yuan was silent for a moment, then said expressionlessly, "You have the talent to become the cursed fate of 10,000 swords, so why do you want to be tainted with a bad reputation? People will curse you when they mention you. Is that what you want?" Qiao Yuan was a member of the royal family of the Myriad Swords dynasty, and he was a well-deserved valiant general in the past. When he was still alive, he could break through thousands of armies. Even when he was old and dying, he could still suppress people like Lei Qiusheng and Yan Xingqi, who did not dare to show the slightest bit of ambition. It was only after Qiao Yuan died of illness that the era of the Myriad Swords dynasty came to an end. "You see, you can only think of Qiao Yuan." Cyrus sneered and said with disdain, "There are plenty of people who want to be good ministers. However, there are so many countries on the Tianwu continent. Other than Qiao Yuan, who is extremely talented, do you think you can find a second person who is famous in the 7 empires and is known as the #1 general since ancient times? This path is too slow and inefficient, and it might not even succeed. It's not suitable for people like me." Chapter 707. Since you and I have achieved our goals, let's part ways here. Lin Yuan had no intention of pulling back a lunatic who had gone astray. After all, he had no evidence to prove that Cyrus was wrong. Putting aside this world where the 7 empires fought against each other and where the guardians of the heavenly gates stood above the secular world, even in the world where he lived in his previous life, the history of the Han people had been recognized for close to 5,000 years. The level of civilization in every era was enough to stand proudly at the top of the world. Every dynasty could be said to be filled with shining generals and talented people. But how many people could be called the pillars of a country, and how many people were there that could support the collapse of a great building? For example, the #1 general of the 3 Kingdoms period, Lu Bu. Whether it was at that time or later, he was said to be brave. If he was loyal to the Han dynasty, he might become an existence comparable to Wei Qing. But in reality, this sentence was just a form of flattery. If Lu Bu did not become a slave of 3 surnames and walk the path of loyalty to the Han dynasty, he might still be a famous general, but he might not be comparable to Wei Qing. But one thing was for sure. Lu Bu who was loyal to the Han dynasty would definitely not be comparable to Lu Bu who was a slave of 3 surnames. There were 3 generals at the end of the Han dynasty. All of them were existences who could suppress the feudal lords of the world. For example, Cao Cao and Yuan Shao had worked under these 3 generals. However, in terms of reputation, these 3 generals were too low. This was the price of being a failure in history. Even if Lu Bu was loyal to the Han dynasty, he could not change the direction of the Eastern Han dynasty's destruction. At that time, his reputation might not even be as good as the 3 generals at the end of the Han dynasty. Cyrus was not weak. In the endless sea, it was known as the virtuoso. However, if it walked the righteous path, it might not be able to catch up to Li Zhong. In the end, it would fade into the crowd. This was not a matter of ability but a matter of perspective. Therefore, in Lin Yuan's eyes, Cyrus was at most a second-rate strategist. Cyrus narrowed its eyes and sized up Lin Yuan. It suddenly smiled and said, "Amazing. I thought you would persuade me to do good and then follow you back to the northern frontier and become your right-hand man. If I persuade you to do good, will you do it?" Lin Yuan glanced at Cyrus from the corner of his eyes and asked faintly. Cyrus was silent. Lin Yuan was also silent for a moment before he opened his mouth to break the silence. He said indifferently, "In my hometown, there's a saying that it's easy to change mountains and rivers, but hard to change one's nature. No matter what your nature is, since you've chosen to be a virtuoso, you can only force yourself to walk this path to the end. If you change your path halfway, the end result won't be very good. If that's the case, I've learned a lot." Cyrus nodded, an obscure light flashing in his eyes. Lin Yuan took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "Your years of planning didn't go to waste. It even had an effect that exceeded your expectations. I also got the Siren Guild member seal from you. It's a win-win situation. Then, let's go our separate ways. Are you really not going to persuade me? Maybe I'll agree to it." Cyrus winked at Lin Yuan and said in a mocking tone, "I wouldn't have bothered if it were an ordinary organization trying to recruit me, but you're different from your northern frontier. A country where humans and monsters coexist. TSK. Even if those ancient sages came back from the dead, they wouldn't be able to do something like that. Yet, you've succeeded. The current northern frontier has the potential to replace the Shenwu dynasty and become one of the 7 dynasties. But I already have a right-hand man. I don't need your help." Lin Yuan shook his head. He went around Cyrus, who was blocking his way, and continued swimming forward. "That's where you're wrong. If you want to build a country where humans and monsters coexist, you have to ensure that the monsters and humans under your command are always on the same level. It won't do for either side to have too much momentum. But look at the northern frontier now. Almost all the management is made up of humans. When you were at the northern frontier, you were able to suppress them and get them to live in harmony with the monsters. But can you guarantee that you'll always be able to suppress them? Can you guarantee that you'll always have the energy to take care of the northern frontier? Black Jiao, I'm very interested in the northern frontier, so I've done a lot of research. Even you, the Blackwater Dragon King, have been ostracized by the people of the northern frontier because of your origins as a monster. They'd rather praise Li Zhong, who you've supported, than admit that the northern frontier has always been under your control. As a monster, I don't care about the attitude of the monsters in the northern frontier toward humans, but I do care about the attitude of the humans in the northern frontier toward the monsters. Have you never thought that by the time you return to the northern frontier, the humans and the monsters will already be at war? Have you easily destroyed all the hard work you've put in over a year?" Cyrus's words were somewhat bewitching. In a flash, it appeared in front of Lin Yuan again. Lin Yuan looked at Cyrus, who was blocking his way again, with a cold gaze. He didn't say anything, but waves of uncontrollable killing intent erupted from his body. "I don't know how many people in the management of the northern region are loyal to you, but I'm sure that the reason why they don't dare to rebel against you is because you gave them a stage to show their abilities. That's more important than their respect for you. Black Jiao, I'm not trying to brag, but you do need me because none of the monsters around you are presentable. They can help you destroy cities and strongholds, but they can't help you govern the northern frontier. Restraining the monsters under you to maintain goodwill toward the northern frontier is already their limit. You need a group of management who are monsters. Even if they leave you, they won't be inferior to the humans in the northern frontier. Isn't that right? You want a prosperous and stable northern frontier where the 2 races coexist, and I want a stage where I can leave my name in history and let the future generations know of my existence. This is much more interesting and effective than manipulating the various forces to attack and destroy each other." It seemed that Cyrus was really interested in becoming an official in the northern frontier. When it said this, it had a fanatical look on its face. That's right. Even if you can't do it, destroying such an existence will make your name as a virtuoso in the history of the Tianwu continent. Lin Yuan replied coldly, I don't think you have the ability to control the monsters in the northern frontier. Don't talk about being an equal. If you leave me and don't use those dirty tricks, you'll only be toyed to death by Li Zhong and the others. What makes you think I'll recruit you and send a ticking time bomb to the northern frontier? Cyrus's breathing stagnated as it looked at Lin Yuan in disbelief. It swallowed the rest of its words and looked at Lin Yuan as if it was looking at a monster. Chapter 708. You have the strength of a demon king. In the northern frontier, you can be said to be a unique existence. However, strength is not enough for you to rely on. Back then, it was extremely difficult for the 7 empires to cultivate a Heaven Dipper realm cultivator. However, I have the confidence to make all the cultivators in the northern frontier step into the Heaven Dipper realm and even higher realms within 3 years. Great strength is not something that is unattainable for the northern frontier. I only need 5 years for the northern frontier to catch up with any of the 7 empires. If I have 10 years, not to mention the other empires, even the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas won't be in my eyes. As for your wisdom and strategy, they are not worth mentioning in my eyes. Because with enough time, the northern frontier can defeat any opponent fair and square. The so-called schemes are just a joke in the face of absolute strength. You are used to playing tricks, using all kinds of drugs and illusions to control other creatures. However, in the end, you only bring destruction. Political views such as people's livelihood and prosperity are too foreign to you. If you want to enter the northern frontier, you have to learn from the beginning. Since you have to learn from the beginning, why do I have to recruit you? With the existence of the Northern Frontier Academy, it can provide me with an endless stream of talents every year. Moreover, they are talents born according to my plan, aren't they? As for the trouble you speak of, it has never happened before, and it will never happen in the future. Because your understanding of me is based on hearsay and rumors. Even if you have a high opinion of me in your heart, it won't be as high as those who have survived my baptism in the northern region. Not to mention that they can't take care of the northern frontier, even if I am trapped in the endless sea, they will not dare to act rashly. Even if the news of my death reaches the northern frontier one day, it will be the same. Before they see my corpse with their own eyes and confirm that I am really dead, they will not dare to do anything. Instead of saying that I need a demonic beast force that can stand shoulder to shoulder with the humans in the northern frontier, it is better to say that even if the humans in the northern frontier unite, they can only submit to me. No matter how strong they are, no matter how rich they are, as long as I don't allow it, they won't be able to use it at all. This is the true face of the northern frontier. Do you understand? Lin Yuan stared at Cyrus indifferently, shook his head, and added, You're worthless to the northern frontier right now. Not only do we need to invest resources and time to nurture you, but if you're not capable enough and fail your studies, you'll also become a hidden danger to the northern frontier. When the disadvantages outweigh the advantages, what right do you have to join the northern frontier? Cyrus was lost for words again. It could only stare at Lin Yuan in a daze. After a long while, Cyrus sighed and said bitterly, I understand. Since he had already said so much, it would be a waste of breath to say anything else. However, Lin Yuan changed the topic and said in a low voice, As you said, it's true that I hope to build a nation where humans and demonic beasts coexist, so nurturing a demonic beast force is inevitable. Since you have the confidence to stand shoulder to shoulder with Li Zhong, the human king of the northern frontier, I'll give you a chance. Cyrus's expression changed, and its dejection was swept away. It looked at Lin Yuan eagerly. Only mediocre people did not like challenges. For those who were capable, any challenge was an opportunity for them to ascend to a higher realm. Building a nation where demonic beasts and humans coexisted was something that even the ancient sages could not do. If Lin Yuan could really accomplish it, then Lin Yuan would become an existence that surpassed the ancient sages. By then, all those who followed Lin Yuan as a leader, regardless of race or past, would be able to leave a mark in history as long as they played a role. This was much more interesting than becoming a virtuoso who terrorized the endless sea. My request is simple. After today, the Willowstone waters will be destroyed, and the nearby sea demon forces will definitely set their eyes on this fat piece of meat. I want you to gather the survivors of the Willowstone waters, replace that lobster as the ruler, and establish this area as our base. I'll provide you with all the help I can, and what you need to do is to make this place stronger and more prosperous than before. If you can do this, I'll admit that I was wrong before. After I'm done with the endless sea, I'll bring you back to the northern frontier. By then, I'll make you the ruler of the demonic beasts in the northern frontier. You'll be on par with Li Zhong as the king of the northern frontier. He'll rule over humans, and you'll rule over demonic beasts. How does that sound? Lin Yuan swayed his black tail, and a meaningful look appeared in his eyes. By then, as long as it doesn't affect the development of the northern frontier, I don't mind how you fight with Li Zhong. There can only be one righteous god in the northern frontier, but there can be one or two kings, right? I'll do it. Cyrus's eyes shone with a strange light as it agreed loudly. As one of the top intelligent villains in the endless sea, Cyrus did not doubt its ability at all. Whether it was rebuilding the Willow Rock Sea region or going to the northern frontier to fight with Li Zhong, Cyrus felt that it could win. Only such a challenging task could arouse the interest of a strong person. If Lin Yuan had casually arranged some simple tasks for it and called them a test, Cyrus would have doubted Lin Yuan's sincerity. Therefore, the difficulty level was just right. Then, work hard. Lin Yuan nodded at Cyrus. The flood dragons and their other minions flashed out from the side and stood respectfully behind Lin Yuan. They don't have names for now. You can call them Flood Dragon 1 to Flood Dragon 4. Consider them your subordinates. They have the same bloodline as me. Although they're still very weak now, their growth won't be slow. Moreover, they're absolutely loyal to me. If I hand them over to you, they won't hesitate even if you ask them to die. Also, no matter how far away they are, they have the ability to contact me directly. Therefore, they'll report everything you do to me truthfully. At the same time, if you need my help, you can contact me through them. Perhaps I'll send you more helpers after a while, but for now, this is all I can give you. Lin Yuan smiled at Cyrus, although it looked a little ferocious. Not only did these minions have the same bloodline as him, but they were also fanatics. There was no doubt about their loyalty. As for the method of direct contact regardless of distance, it was called prayer in his previous life. Believers could contact their God even if they were separated by the heavenly realm and the human realm. Moreover, the Tianwu continent was an incomplete world. There was only the human realm. Therefore, as long as they prayed, they would be able to contact Lin Yuan. Chapter 709. Cyrus did not know that even if it completed Lin Yuan's plan, it could not escape the fate of being thrown aside or even destroyed as a tool once it lost its value. From the very beginning, Lin Yuan had no intention of sincerely recruiting Cyrus. It was not that Lin Yuan was indifferent, but there were countless bloody examples in the history books of his previous life. He told Cyrus that a leopard cannot change its spots was a nice way to put it. To put it bluntly, it meant that a leopard could not change its spots. As a villain who liked to use underhanded means to control other living beings, set up a trap to destroy a certain force, and seek pleasure in the process of bringing despair and destruction to other living beings. It hoped that its bad name would spread across the endless sea. To it, being positive and upward was not related at all. Cyrus' current attitude might be that it really wanted to become the pillar of the northern frontier, but its past experiences would keep chasing after it and corrode it again, turning it into the master of destiny of the past. If a villain could turn over a new leaf so easily, there would not be the saying that a prodigal son would turn over a new leaf. It was not that the northern frontier could not withstand the wind and rain, but there was no need for it to cause trouble for itself. Just as Lin Yuan said before, Cyrus had too many things to learn. Otherwise, it would not be able to establish itself in the northern frontier in the future, let alone fight against Li Zhong. Once Cyrus suffered a setback, even it could not guarantee that there would not be a bottom line for its methods. After leaving the four spawns with Cyrus, Lin Yuan departed for another region of the sea. Although the information was not verified, the Siren Guild was not a strict organization. As long as Lin Yuan had the Siren Guild seal in his hand, he was a member of the Siren Guild. Therefore, he had achieved his goal in the Willow Rock Sea. Now, Lin Yuan could go to any region of the sea. Even if he wandered around the West Sea Dragon Palace's territory, he would not have to worry about attracting the attention of the West Sea Dragon Palace unless the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas had the ability to fight against the Siren Guild, the Outer Sea Monsters, and the Evil Dragon faction. As for Face, the Siren Guild might have given it to him in the past. But certainly not now. Although Cyrus was behind the destruction of the Willowstone Sea, the Siren Guild would definitely not believe it. After all, Cyrus had concealed its identity for a long time in order to set up a trap. The outside world thought that it was already dead. In addition, the Willow Rock region was not weak. With 3 demon kings guarding it, it was impossible to destroy the Willow Rock region without sufficient combat strength. In addition, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas couldn't possibly expose Lin Yuan's existence. If they did, the Sea Monsters Guild would cut off their escape route to the Martial Heaven continent. Combined with Willow Rock Sea region's destruction and Long Jiuzi's appearance, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas wouldn't be able to wash away this scapegoat. Even the Siren Guild had to believe that it was Cyrus' handiwork. The Willow Rock region had been thriving quietly for so many years. Suddenly, 7 Long Jiuzi's members were attracted and destroyed. How could there be such a coincidence? The Dragon Palace of the Four Seas could at most deny that the members who went to the Willow Rock region were Long Jiuzi's members. However, the Sea Monsters Guild could find out who went to the Willow Rock region to investigate Lin Yuan's identity. Regardless of whether they were Long Jiuzi's members or not, the identity of the Dragon Palace's members could not be washed away. Even if the Sea Monsters Guild did not directly declare war on the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas for the sake of the big picture, they would no longer maintain a friendly attitude towards the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas like before. At this time, as long as the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas dared to touch a member of the Sea Monsters Guild, they would immediately receive a storm of attacks from the Sea Monsters Guild. Other than making life more difficult for the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, there was no other meaning. 2 days later. West Sea Dragon Palace. Wearing a purple robe, the West Sea Dragon King looked at Yazi and Fu Su kneeling in front of him. His body kept trembling, as if he was forcefully suppressing his anger. He kept pursing his lips tightly, worried that he would have all Long Jiuzi's members killed as soon as he opened his mouth. Dragon King, we know that we have made a big mistake this time. Please protect us on account of our loyalty to the Dragon King. When this matter is over, we will personally kill Cyrus and avenge today's humiliation. Fu Su's body was covered with all kinds of scars. At this moment, when he was kneeling on the ground, his forehead was tightly pressed against the luxurious spiritual stone tiles of the Dragon Palace. It was as if he had completely abandoned his pride as Long Jiuzi. The Sea Monsters Guild was a behemoth that was not inferior to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. If the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas chose to keep the peace and hand them over, they would definitely have no way to survive. Even if the Dragon Palace only expelled them out of consideration for old time's sake, they would be ambushed by a large number of Sea Monsters Guild powerhouses halfway. Protect? How can I protect you? The Dragon King of the West Sea gritted his teeth. His vertical pupils were filled with resentment. He said coldly, "You Long Jiuzi are really arrogant. This king only asked you to investigate if the flood dragon that suddenly appeared in the Willowstone Sea was the Black Jiao." Chapter 710. Is the Dragon King really so heartless? Yazi's expression changed as he said in disbelief. As the top fighting force of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, Long Jiuzi had outstanding military achievements. Whether it was against the aberrations, the Dragon Palace's subordinates, or the Outer Sea Monsters, Long Jiuzi was the absolute vanguard. Long Jiuzi's combat power was indispensable in sieging cities and breaking through enemy lines. Although demon kings were not rare in the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, even if they had a title, they could barely be considered as the top figure in the entire Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. With the death of Long Jiuzi, there would soon be a newcomer of similar strength to replace him. However, the biggest difference between newcomers and veterans was never strength, but experience in dealing with all kinds of unexpected situations. Even an ancestral dragon was infected by the aberrations and turned into a monster, but Long Jiuzi was able to become the main force against the aberrations. Only the members of Long Jiuzi knew how much blood, tears they had to endure. Including the dead Xiao. Now that the 7 Long Jiuzi were expelled, it was equivalent to directly breaking up the team. The newcomers would barely be able to handle it. Therefore, Yazi could not understand why the West Sea Dragon King would expel them without hesitation. This did not make sense. Yazi, you are strong, and Fushi is smart. The two of you were the first to break through the encirclement and escaped back to the West Sea Dragon Palace, but did you pay attention to the news of the other members of Long Jiuzi? Just before you came back, Chao Feng, Pu Lao, and Fushi were all killed. Fushi was still okay. Before he died, he detonated his demon core and demon power, dying together with a group of pursuers. But Chao Feng and Pu Lao were different. Chao Feng ran the slowest and was chased by a group of people. He couldn't fight against them and eventually died of exhaustion. Not only did he leave behind a complete corpse, he even had the proof of identity of Long Jiu's son. That bastard Pu Lao was even worse. Although he didn't get stuck in the mud, he was caught red-handed by the Sea Demon Guild. Under the Sea Demon Guild's methods, he confessed everything that he shouldn't have. Combined with what the survivors said and what Chao Feng said, he was still killed by the Sea Demon Guild in anger. Do you think you can still be saved? The Dragon King of the West Ocean waved his hand and said coldly, the fact that I haven't captured you and Fu and handed you over to the Siren Guild is already out of consideration for your contributions to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. These two bastards. Yazi's face changed again. It was so gloomy that water was about to drip out. Although Long Jiu's identity wouldn't be made public, the entire Endless Sea knew his identity. Previously, no one thought that Cyrus would set up such a big trap in the Willowstone Sea. Naturally, they didn't hide their identity in advance. But this detail didn't matter. After all, if they detonated their monster core and monster power, even a rare treasure would be destroyed on the spot, let alone a small identity. However, Yazi had never thought that Chao Feng and Pu Lao would actually not listen to him. Even when they could not escape, they still refused to self-destruct. In the end, not only did they end up in such a state, they even caused the others who had escaped to die. Sigh, let's run. The Dragon King of the West Ocean looked conflicted. He gritted his teeth and said, you caused such a big trouble. Logically speaking, you should be sent to the evil dragon pool to be suppressed to death. But the Sea Demon Guild will definitely not let this go. When the time comes, they will definitely come to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas and ask for you to be handed over. Even if I want to protect you, I can't. I know. Yazi lowered his head dejectedly, not daring to look directly into the eyes of the Dragon King of the West Ocean. Letting you go now is for the good of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. After all, the aberrations are running amok now. We are lucky to be able to withstand them. We won't dare to go to war with the Sea Demon Guild again. If they come to capture you, do you think I should hand you over or let the entire dragon race of the Four Seas be destroyed in order to protect you? Although the Sea Demon Guild is powerful, they are still a loose organization. If they want to cause trouble in the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, they will need time to gather strength. You can still leave now. If you leave too late, the Sea Demon Guild will stop you. However, we are of the same race. Although this king can't protect you, he won't sit by and watch you die. I will soon put you into the evil dragon register. When that time comes, you can go and find Aosifin. Although the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas is afraid of the Sea Demon Guild and starting a war with us, the evil dragons are different. they don't have to face the aberrations. Even if the Sea Demon Guild comes, as long as Ao Siphon is willing to protect you, at least you can still live normally in the seas controlled by the Dragon Palace. The West Ocean Dragon King sat back on his big chair and said with a gloomy gaze. If Ao Siphon is not willing to protect us, Fu Zhu, who had been silent, slowly raised his head and asked. Survival was the instinct of all living creatures. Not only humans, most living creatures would have a strong desire to survive and potential when they were between life and death. If it were any other day, Fu Zhu would never dare to speak to the West Ocean Dragon King like this. After all, the West Ocean Dragon King had already done everything he could. Not only did he not capture them and hand them over to the Sea Demon Guild to appease the monster's anger, but he also pointed out a way for them to live. This was already a great kindness. After all, the Dragon 9 Sons were the top fighting force of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Other than the Dragon King of the Four Seas, any member of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas would have to obediently address them as Lord. Therefore, no matter what happened, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas would definitely try to protect the members of the Dragon 9 Sons. It would be a lie to say that the Dragon 9 Sons directly went into hiding after the destruction of the Willowstone region instead of escaping back to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. The West Ocean Dragon King had already gone to this extent and had already shed all pretense of cordiality with the Sea Demon Guild. Although he did not directly protect them, he responded to the Sea Demon Guild with his own attitude. He expressed that although the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas would not directly protect the 7 Dragon 9 Sons, they would definitely not sit by and watch the Sea Demon Guild attack them. Although they would not let the two sides directly go to war, it was inevitable that they would become enemies. However, Fu Zhu was not satisfied. As the evil dragon lord, Ao Siphon was not afraid of anything. He would not even take half a step back in front of the Dragon King of the Four Seas. However, if he became enemies with the Sea Demon Guild for the sake of a few Dragon 9 Sons who were loyal to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, Ao Siphon would probably have to think twice. After all, although Ao Siphon was an evil dragon who had committed unpardonable crimes and had now formed the evil dragon faction to publicly challenge the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, he was not a fool. He would not become a tool for the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas for no reason. That was why Fu Zhu suddenly opened his mouth and said this. Chapter 711. Shut up. Yazi coldly glanced at Fu Shi and immediately scolded him in a low voice. Even the West Sea Dragon King said that Fu Shi's brain was good, so Fu Shi was naturally not a reckless and ignorant demon beast. There was only one possibility for him to suddenly say such words: he was scared. However, no matter how scared he was, he should not have rashly offended the West Sea Dragon King, right? Even the bad-tempered Yazi had to admit that although the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas did not directly protect them, they were willing to risk the Sea Demon Guild's hostility to find a way out for them. They were indeed very benevolent. Now, he was forcing the West Sea Dragon King to find a way out for them, which was to roast the West Sea Dragon King on the fire. To be able to suppress the experts of the dragon race of the Four Seas and become one of the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas, how could he be easy to deal with? If the West Sea Dragon King got angry, not to mention giving them a way out, it was not impossible for him to directly capture them and hand them over to the Sea Demon Guild. Wasn't this King courting death? Fu Shi was scolded by Yazi. Although he trembled and did not continue speaking, he still stared at the West Sea Dragon King with his hopeful eyes. Clearly, he had not given up and wanted to obtain a feasible way out from the West Sea Dragon King. It's fine. The West Sea Dragon King gently raised a dragon claw and sighed faintly. Whether it is Ao Siphon or 8 Distresses, although they are listed in the Evil Dragon Register, they are still part of the Four Seas dragon race. Previously, both of us were too radical in our views on this matter, so we ended up in such a situation. Now that the Four Seas dragon race is in danger, any power is extremely precious. This king has always wanted to mend the relationship with the evil dragon camp. Let this king think about it, think about it. Seeing that the Four Seas Dragon King was deep in thought, Fu Shi's eyes turned. He gritted his teeth and said, Ao Sifin and I are of the same generation, so I have some understanding of him. This fellow values fairness the most. It is not difficult to get him to protect us, and it is not difficult to even borrow the power of the evil dragon camp to deal with the aberrant. However, the prerequisite is that we have to give the corresponding reward. In my opinion, before he finished speaking, Fu Shi felt Yazi and the West Sea Dragon King's eyes on him. Gulp. Fu Shi swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He could vaguely feel a strong murderous intent from Yazi's eyes. In fact, Yazi not only wanted to kill Fu Shi, but also wanted to tear apart Fu Shi's damn mouth. Even if you want to die, you don't have to do this, right? When the West Sea Dragon King was in deep thought and did not speak, it meant that he did not want to continue this topic and gave them a chance to sneak away quietly. Fu Shi had not finished speaking, but Yazi realized that Fu Shi wanted to sell some confidential information of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas in exchange for Ao Sifin's protection. Of course, this kind of thing could not be said openly. But strictly speaking, as the leader of the evil dragon camp, Ao Sifin had been rescuing the evil dragons in the evil dragon pool to expand his own forces. Therefore, he was not completely unfamiliar with the secrets of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. The things that the Dragon King could come into contact with were not enough to arouse Ao Sifin's interest. Therefore, Fu Shi wanted the Four Seas Dragon King to take the initiative to provide some secrets to win Ao Sifin's favor. But the secrets of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, and they were secrets that only existences at the level of the Dragon King could come into contact with. How could it be so easily handed over to them? Did this bastard really not want to leave the Dragon Palace of the West Sea alive? It's not impossible. Unexpectedly, the West Sea Dragon King did not flare up on the spot. Instead, he seriously considered Fu Shi's suggestion. This scene made Fu Shi and Yazi feel relieved. They each let out a sigh of relief and showed an expression of being given a new lease of life. There are many secrets of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. This king does know a lot of them, but he will definitely not hand them over to the two of you. Even if this king is willing to tell you, it will be useless. Ao Sifin will not easily trust you. In addition, once the secrets are leaked, the entire Dragon Palace of the Four Seas will launch a hunt for you. Are you sure you want to attract the attention of the powerful dragon race when you have offended the Siren Guild? This king only said that your suggestion is feasible because the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas has an important matter to attend to. Originally, they did not plan to involve the evil dragons. However, at this moment, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas has offended the Siren Guild because of you. I'm afraid that they will immediately withdraw their defense line. Those Dragon Palace members who are traveling in other seas will also have to be recalled. Otherwise, they may attract the attention of the powerful Siren Guild. Therefore, this king can allow you to leak the Black Jiao's identity to Ao Sifin and use the power of the evil dragon camp to continue the hunt for the Black Jiao. Remember to tell Ao Sifin that if she can capture the Black Jiao for us, we will immediately destroy the evil dragon register and accept them back into the dragon race of the Four Seas. When we return to the Tianwu continent, we will also give them a large area to live and reproduce. The West Sea Dragon King crossed his two dragon claws in front of him and said with narrowed eyes, "Remember, we can allow them to not participate in the war against the mutants." However, the Black Jiao has become the last retreat for the dragon race of the Four Seas. If he dares to do anything secretly, there will naturally be a spy who will contact me. When that time comes, don't blame us for ignoring the big picture and perishing together with him. This subordinate will remember. Fu Shi's face lit up and immediately replied in a deep voice. Go. The West Sea Dragon King waved his dragon claws and said with a complicated expression. At the same time, in the Qi Gorge Sea region, Lin Yuan and a dragon man in a golden robe stood opposite each other. After a while, the dragon man opened his mouth and revealed a ferocious smile to Lin Yuan. He said in a deep voice, "The Black Jiao suddenly appeared in front of me. It shouldn't be a coincidence. Therefore, I have to praise you. The Dragon King's ability is probably more terrifying than we expected. Even the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas or the Sea Demon Guild would not be able to find the hiding place of the evil dragon in such a short time. I'm not here to be polite. Lin Yuan revealed the same ferocious smile and said, I have not had a good time in the endless sea. Whether it is the outer sea or the deep sea, the hostility towards me is too great. There are demon beasts who want to kill me at the slightest provocation. In addition, my temper is not good. There is no reason to take a beating and not fight back, is there? I understand. The smile on the dragonman's face slowly disappeared. He said with a serious expression, Can I understand that the Blackwater Dragon King wants to borrow the power of the evil dragon to take revenge on the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas? If that is your intention, please forgive me for refusing. Chapter 7:12. This is really strange. According to what I've seen and heard, the relationship between the evil dragon and the dragon tribe of the Four Seas has always been bad. Even if I didn't come to visit, you wouldn't let go of the chance to attack the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. So, it doesn't make much of a difference whether I come or not. But after I came to visit, you actually rejected me directly? I was curious about the reason. It couldn't be that the Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas had been hiding their strength all this time. They were secretly hiding the power that could overturn the endless sea in an instant, right? If that's the case, I can understand your concerns. In the face of such a force, not to mention the Siren Guild, even the outer sea monster beasts and your evil dragon won't be enough, right? Lin Yuan's words were obviously more teasing. Obviously, it was impossible for the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas to hide a power of that level. Although the Great Old Ones were troublesome, it was actually not a big deal to the system. Because of the rules, the system could not give the host an impossible mission. Therefore, although all the hosts in the universe were carrying out a large-scale mission together, there would definitely be corresponding adjustments according to the differences in each world. At the same time, it also meant that the system believed that all the hosts had the ability to eliminate the Great Old Ones. This also meant that the power displayed by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was probably already at its limit. If the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas really had a trump card, then they wouldn't have been forced into such a situation. There was even a possibility that they were putting on an act. For example, the arrival of the 7 sons of the Dragon Palace in the Willowstone Sea region seemed to be a deployment of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, but perhaps only they themselves knew that the mobilization of the 7 sons of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas meant a huge sacrifice on the front lines to fill the gap. The Dragon Palace of the Four Seas doesn't have any hidden trump cards. The only thing they have is the ancestral dragons who are still in hibernation. So, even the Sea Monster Guild alone can force the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas into a desperate situation, let alone us joining forces. The dragonman's face turned gloomy as he said, But no matter what, we evil dragons are still members of the dragon race. It's fine if we fight on a small scale, but when it comes to destroying the dragon palaces of the Four Seas, we won't do such a thing. If it was the Blackwater Dragon King, would he also participate in the war to destroy the Hengduan Mountains? The Dragonborn's words left Lin Yuan speechless. The evil dragon was at odds with the dragon race of the Four Seas. This was something that the entire Endless Sea knew. Lin Yuan had thought of this as well, which was why he had come all the way to Evil Dragon's temporary headquarters. He hadn't expected to be rejected by Evil Dragon before he could even ask. This was indeed a difficult question to answer. Just like Lin Yuan, he was very clear that the world he lived in his previous life was a real low-level martial world. Those incomparably powerful people or demons in myths and legends had long been obliterated in the long river of history. Even if there were survivors, they would hide in some corner and not dare to show their faces. Not to mention an existence like Hong Jun, who was eyeing the heavenly Tao fragment that existed in his previous world, even if there were cultivators or demonic beasts in the Tianwu continent who transmigrated to his previous world, they could be said to be invincible. The existence of the demonic king realm could even force the humans to take the risk of self-destruction. Hong Jun still hadn't found the coordinates of his previous world. However, one day, if Hong Jun were to open the gate of heaven to invade like he did to the Tianwu continent, the humans would definitely lose the war. However, when that day came, would Lin Yuan be able to go against his conscience and join Hongjuan's side to suppress the humans in his previous world? Obviously, it was impossible. Now, the evil dragon was facing the same problem. The once prosperous dragon palace of the Four Seas was now in imminent danger. As long as they were willing to add fuel to the fire and incite a war between the Sea Demon Guild and the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, they could instantly destroy the colossus that was above them. Even if the Sea Demon Guild wasn't powerful enough, those demonic beasts from the outer sea who were eyeing covetously wouldn't miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. However, if that happened, the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas would be destroyed. Would the evil dragon be able to live a good life? Soft-hearted. Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes flashed with a cold light. He said with a cold face, "I didn't expect the great leader of the evil dragon to be so benevolent. As the leader of the evil dragon clan, isn't your biggest goal to destroy the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas to clear the name of yourself and the evil dragon under you? Once the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas is wiped out, you will be the new Dragon Clan of the Four Seas." I said, "Your goal is different from ours. Please forgive me for refusing." The Dragonborn chuckled and shook his head. He gave his answer again. Lin Yuan was silent for a moment. Suddenly, he smiled and said, "You can't say that. Although I didn't expect the evil dragon to have feelings for the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas, that's because we haven't interacted before. However, my eyes can't be wrong. Based on the West Sea Dragon King that I've interacted with, he definitely won't miss this opportunity to scheme against you evil dragons. Do you believe me?" Ha! The Dragonborn smiled disdainfully. He shook his head and said loudly, "Whether it's the evil dragon clan or the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas, in essence, they are all members of the Dragon Clan. Just like how we don't want the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas to be destroyed, how could the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas be willing to let us wither? You can't be thinking that we can save so many evil dragons every year because the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas is really useless, right?" Speaking of this, it paused and lowered its voice. Now that the Endless Sea is facing a great calamity, everyone knows that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas has provoked a strong enemy. However, we, the Dragon Tribe, are the masters of the Endless Sea. We can't just watch the outsiders run amok, so we took the initiative to take on the task of resisting them. However, although the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas is strong, they still don't have a good chance of winning against those monsters. Lin Yuan understood what the Dragonborn meant. It was just like how the aristocratic families always liked to place bets in troubled times. Brothers from the same family, no matter how close they were, would never pledge allegiance to anyone in troubled times. Unless it was the will of the people or they were invincible, the descendants of the aristocratic families would pledge allegiance to different monarchs. They would attack each other or even kill each other personally to raise the status of the family or to protect the bloodline of the family in troubled times. If there were invaders in the Endless Sea, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas might not be their match. If the evil Dragon Palace of the Four Seas became the enemy of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, even if the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was defeated in the future, the Dragon Clan's bloodline could still be left in the Endless Sea. It sounded good, but in fact, it wasn't the case. These evil dragons were being used as meat shields by the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas. Chapter 713. Lin Yuan stretched his body and looked at the dragonoid meaningfully. He said calmly, "I have yet to ask for your name." "Ao Siphon." The dragonoid pondered for a moment. Although it could not understand Lin Yuan's meaning, it still reported its name. Lin Yuan was known as the Blackwater Dragon King. Although he was disliked by the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas, it was undeniable that even without the support of the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas, Lin Yuan had still managed to develop his own force. Even if their forces were not the same, Lin Yuan was now the leader of a force. Therefore, the necessary respect could not be lacking. There were always some people in the world who thought that strength was the truth and that they could easily trample on anyone's dignity. But this was not right. Because it was not the truth that strength could dominate everything. It was a cruel law that all things were born from. Only the creatures at the bottom of the food chain who needed to struggle for survival would think that strength was everything. After evolving to a certain extent and giving birth to their own civilization, they would develop mutual respect. Just like the saying in Lin Yuan's previous life, when two countries went to war, they would not kill the envoys. This had nothing to do with national strength or personal relations. Even if there was a huge difference in strength between the two sides, the stronger side would not wantonly bully the weaker side. That was not only bullying the weak, but also disrespecting themselves. Ao Sifan understood this, and so did Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan. When he introduced himself, Lin Yuan looked at Ao Sifan with a meaningful gaze. He knew who Ao Sifan was. It was once a prodigy that the entire Dragon Palace of the Four Seas valued greatly. However, because it adopted a group of orphans during a war, it was viewed as a heretic by the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas. Because Ao Sifan was a direct descendant of the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas, not to mention its extraordinary talent, it could inherit a large and rich territory even if it just ate and waited for its death. Moreover, it insisted on giving the orphans it adopted the right to inherit. If that was all, it would be fine. After all, geniuses always had special privileges. However, among those orphans, not a single one had the Dragon Clan's bloodline. This also meant that after Ao Sifan died of old age, most of its territories would be inherited by demon beasts without dragon bloodline. The problem of bloodline could indeed be solved through intermarriage, but the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas was no longer the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas that had just descended on the Tianwu continent. They believed that the bloodline of the Dragon Clan was the noblest bloodline in the world. Some of the Dragon Clan's demonic beasts with insufficient bloodline density were not even qualified to intermarry and mate with the Dragon Clan's descendants, let alone mating with ordinary demonic beasts that did not even have a trace of bloodline. Moreover, this was not just a matter of bloodline. To put it simply, the deep sea area controlled by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was completely sealed off. Only dragon bloodline demon beasts could enter and leave. If some demon beasts without dragon bloodline became the lords of the deep sea, it meant that the demon beasts in the outer sea had a reason to reach into the deep sea. Thus, the initial debate turned into a battle. In the end, Ao Sifan was expelled from the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas, and the orphans it adopted were all killed by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Not long after, Ao Sifan established the evil dragon camp. It believed that the Dragon Clan had embarked on a path of self-destruction, and was determined to reform the system and prejudice of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. The results were remarkable. In the past few years, more and more evil dragons had become evil dragons, and the evil dragon camp's strength grew rapidly. If not for a few true dragons that were still sleeping in the Dragon Palace to protect the Dragon Clan, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas would have already had a new Dragon King. But while Ao Sifan's strength grew rapidly, it was not without a price. In the beginning, the evil dragon camp only had one evil dragon camp. Even after absorbing a few evil dragons, their style of doing things was mostly based on Ao Sifan's opinion. But as their strength grew rapidly, the evil dragon camp quickly gave birth to many factions. There were reformists like Ao Sifan, and some simple ambitious people, spies from the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, etc. Ao Sifan was still the leader of the evil dragon camp in name, but in reality, the evil dragon camp was no longer under Ao Sifan's control. Once an order was given, other than his own troops, if he wanted to mobilize the other evil dragons, he would have to hold a meeting to discuss it. He would even have to give up a portion of his benefits to hire the other party to do things for him. It was similar to the overseas Hong sect in Lin Yuan's previous life. It was originally a group of Chinese people that worked together to fight for benefits. But later on, because of its size, it was targeted by some people with ulterior motives. The original dragon head had become a symbol, and every faction had their own right to speak and independence. Some of the branches were even controlled by foreigners or even foreigners. The similarity between the two was that there were external forces in charge, and they were no longer as pure. But Ao Sifan's name was still like thunder. After all, the world in Lin Yuan's previous life was a low-level martial world. If one wanted to suppress the heroes, they had to rely on their reputation, ability, their parents' generation, and their own connections. But in the Tianwu continent, the strength of an individual could directly influence the direction of a large force. The northern frontier had Lin Yuan, and he always hid many trump cards, making people unable to see his real power. Countless evil spirits and monsters only dared to hide in the dark. The evil dragon camp had Ao Siphon, but he didn't need to use any tricks or create mysteries. He used his own strength to suppress the evil dragon camp. Looking at your eyes, you seem to know who I am. Ao Siphon and Lin Yuan looked at each other for a while. Ao Siphon suddenly chuckled and said, "That's good. The Endless Sea doesn't have someone like you. They either don't know who I am, so they act like they don't care about me. But when they know who I am, they start to smile carefully. Or they know who I am, but they only treat me as a freak. They don't want to be friends with me sincerely. They just want to complete their mission or do their work." Speaking of this, it paused and continued, "Previously, you were directly rejected by me and asked for my name. Obviously, you have another excuse. Then, let's hear it. But before that, can you answer a question for me? How did you find this base?" I asked around. Lin Yuan smiled. He could find the base of the evil dragon camp because there were many members of the evil dragon camp in the black water of the Nether Realm. With the information and memories of the evil dragon camp, it wasn't hard to find a few bases of the evil dragon camp. Also, it's not that I have another excuse. My original intention hasn't changed. Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes sparkled. He said, "I heard that you created the evil dragon camp to change some bad habits of the dragon palaces of the Four Seas. You wanted the dragon tribes of the Four Seas to abandon the bloodline prejudice. But it's not realistic. I think after trying for so long, you have given up on this idea. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been assimilated by the dragon palaces of the Four Seas." Chapter 7:14. Me? Give up? Be assimilated? Ao Siphon lifted one of its dragon claws and pointed at its own face in confusion. It said coldly, "Lin Yuan, I came to see you because I respect you, but it doesn't mean that I'm afraid of you. Although I don't know why the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas values you, you're just an outsider to me. You're not qualified to point fingers at me. 36 years ago, the evil dragon camp fought with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. They fought bloody battles for 2 months. Even if we don't count the subordinates of the Dragon Palace, the Dragon Tribe of the Four Seas with the direct bloodline lost more than 8,000 people. And this was only the first battle that made you famous. After that, the evil dragon camp fought more and more fiercely and crazily, as if they wanted to perish together with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. So I think highly of you, because you're much stronger than those guys who only have the bloodline of the Dragon Tribe. They're called dragons because of their bloodline and appearance, but you're called a dragon because of your strong will. Maybe you don't understand, but in my hometown, dragons have become legendary creatures. But countless people still like to use dragon as a title to promote someone's strength and extraordinariness. This kind of strength is not the strength of strength, but more of a kind of recognition of the world. 36 years ago, Ao Siphon was still a dragon in my eyes, but the current you, hee. Lin Yuan shook his head in disdain as he spoke. He said in a deep voice, "It's just a facade. How can you think that the evil dragon camp is just a backup plan prepared by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas? How ridiculous is that? Could it be that you, Ao Siphon, have forgotten the purpose of establishing the evil dragon camp?" Ao Siphon was speechless. It could only stare at Lin Yuan blankly, not knowing how to answer Lin Yuan. Of course, it knew why it established the evil dragon camp. It was just that 36 years had passed. For a long-lived species that was born with a long lifespan, although it still had a lot of time, its temperament was constantly suppressed and suppressed. The dragon clan's heaven's pride had been polished into a blunt knife by various existences with ulterior motives. Now, Lin Yuan's words were like a blow to the head, directly stunning Ao Siphon. Back then, when I established the evil dragon faction, I only hoped that the dragon race of the four seas would become more prosperous. Only by eliminating those unnecessary prejudices and outdated ideals would the dragon race of the four seas be able to continue existing in this world. My goal is only to make the dragon race of the four seas better. Ao Sifen's voice became softer and softer, as if its confidence was not enough to finish its sentence. That's good. Lin Yuan laughed. People who pretend to be asleep can never be woken up. If Ao Sifen avoided this topic, it meant that Ao Sifen was beyond saving. But now, it seemed that this heaven's pride of the dragon race was unwilling to give up its ideals. However, under the constant polishing of reality, it had lost its edge and started to fade into the crowd. The two of them sat opposite each other. After a moment of silence, Lin Yuan took the initiative to speak. You established the evil dragon faction in the beginning. Your goal was to make the dragon race of the four seas better and more complete, not to become a refuge for the dragon race of the four seas. The advantages and disadvantages of your strategy of absorbing the evil dragon faction are obvious. The advantage is that your strength has grown at an astonishing speed. From the beginning of guerrilla warfare to the establishment of various bases and the beginning of positional warfare with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, this is enough to prove this point. Speaking of this, Lin Yuan paused again and said in a deep voice, but the disadvantages are also very obvious. Those who violated the rules of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas and were thrown into the evil dragon pool are all characters who can take charge of their own affairs. However, they are not the same as you. They have their own ideas and personalities. They are innocent and sinful. When you mix them together, you are splitting yourself. It can be said that you brought this upon yourself. Is it my fault? Ao Sifen raised its head and looked at Lin Yuan with a puzzled face. It didn't know what to say at this moment. It just wanted to help as many evil dragons as possible because in its eyes, those who violated the rules of the Dragon Palace didn't deserve to die. It was more because of the rules of the Dragon Palace itself. For example, it just adopted some children who had lost their parents because the dragon race of the Four Seas invaded the Endless Sea. What was wrong with that? As a father, it wanted to give its wealth to its children. What was wrong with that? How innocent were those children who died in the hands of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas? How innocent was it, the heaven's pride of the dragon race, in the past? Was it because those sea monsters didn't have the dragon race's bloodline that it was a crime for them to live in the deep sea? Since ancient times, it wasn't the only innocent one among the dragon race of the Four Seas. Even worse things had happened before. It only wanted to save these evil dragons and hoped that these evil dragons could borrow its strength to save more evil dragons to strengthen itself. When its strength reached a certain level, even the ancestral dragons would have no choice but to back down, right? Of course, it's your fault. Lin Yuan firmly confirmed Ao Sifen's self-judgment. He didn't want to comfort it at all. In fact, your biggest mistake is that you still have mercy at this moment. In my eyes, the Dragon Palace has reached the root. If they don't experience a destructive attack, they will never be able to correct it. Your idea is just an idea. Ao Sifen lowered his head as a thoughtful look flashed across his eyes. Lin Yuan also kept silent, giving Ao Sifen enough time to think. To be honest, he was trying to fool Ao Sifen. However, he was willing to give Ao Sifen enough time to think because this problem had troubled Ao Sifen for dozens of years. If it couldn't figure it out in the past, it wouldn't figure it out now unless it could travel through time and see the real answer with its own eyes. However, Ao Sifen was, after all, an ambitious person who could establish the evil dragon camp. It was still suspicious by nature. Therefore, Lin Yuan had to be patient. If he kept urging it and didn't want to give it time to think, Ao Sifen wouldn't choose to believe him even if it couldn't figure it out. No, the evil dragon camp has been accepted by the dragon race of the Four Seas. As long as we can become the new dragon race of the Four Seas. At that time, my idea will be realized, right? Ao Sifen was like a drowning person who grabbed a life-saving straw. It stared at Lin Yuan with cold eyes. It seemed that it didn't want Lin Yuan to give a negative answer. It also didn't want to say what the sentence after, as long as was. Tomorrow is 2021. I wish you all the best in the new year. I wish you all the best and have a meteoric rise. Chapter 7:15. As long as the dragon palace of the four seas is destroyed by the aberrant, you will become the new dragon race of the four seas. As the supreme dragon of the evil dragon camp, you will be the irreplaceable chief. By then, can your idea be realized? Lin Yuan grinned and showed a ferocious smile at Ao Sifan. From the beginning of the statement to the final rhetorical question, Ao Sifan stared at Lin Yuan, panting heavily. His vertical pupils were red. Lin Yuan stared back at Ao Sifan and said coldly, "The dragon palace of the four seas won't be destroyed so easily. Even if they lose this battle, they will leave enough backup plans to ensure that the dragon palace of the four seas will still be the dragon palace of the four seas. At most, they will have a new master. The higher-ups in the evil dragon camp must know about these backup plans, but you don't. Do you really not know who these backup plans are for?" Ao Sifan's expression changed gradually. According to the original plan, he could even win without doing anything. Even though it was funny that he had been fighting with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas for so many years, and even the spies of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas began to occupy high positions in the evil dragon camp, he was still just an evil dragon. However, because of a sudden war that no creature knew why, he had a chance to win without doing anything. The unspoken words were, as long as the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was destroyed. Victory is won by yourself. You want to fight for hegemony by relying on charity and luck. You will have a miserable end. Lin Yuan slowly raised his head. His eyes seemed to have passed through endless time and space. Suddenly, they became deep and profound. He said, "If you don't want to end up like that, I advise you to pull yourself together. I don't ask you to join hands with me, but I hope you can seriously consider my suggestion. Because before I came here, you have been abandoned. You don't even have equal information. Do you still want to wait to reap the benefits? Why was the evil dragon camp infiltrated by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas? In the beginning, it was indeed one of the backup plans prepared by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. After all, the Great Old One's terrifying mental infection ability was right there. It was impossible for them to tolerate any normal creatures walking in their territory in a normal state. This was because their original goal was to destroy this world, destroy the so-called new era, and turn everything into the old era they were familiar with. Only then could they take back everything they had and turn back into normal creatures. Or were they normal in the first place? For Lin Yuan, who had been influenced by his previous life and firmly believed that everyone was equal and that man could conquer the heavens, wouldn't he be a typical outlier in this feudal dynasty controlled by the aristocratic families? Wasn't Lin Yuan assimilating the normal people of this era and pushing the world towards the situation he was familiar with? However, these secrets were not known by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. This was because the Great Old Ones appeared in the West Sea because they wanted to use this opportunity to land on the Sky Marshall continent and directly threaten the northern frontier. However, their distorted appearance and terrifying infection ability made it impossible for them to communicate peacefully with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Facing this group of unknown monsters, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas could only fight to the death. Until now, the Great Old Ones were getting stronger and stronger, and the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was getting weaker and weaker. After suffering setbacks time and time again, it was normal for them to misunderstand the other party's intentions. Therefore, they split off from their race and became the enemy of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, becoming the evil dragons. This was to ensure that when the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was defeated and destroyed, these evil dragons would be able to rely on the new master of the Endless Sea and continue the bloodline of the dragon clan. This was a very normal thing. In fact, for a world where martial strength reigned supreme, there was no difference between humans and demonic beasts. If one wanted to conquer an area and establish one's own power, one would have to experience a bloody storm. Even the powerful dragon clan of the Four Seas couldn't directly become the master of the Endless Sea. Now, only a small part of the Dragon Palace was derived from the combination of the dragon clan of the Four Seas and the sea demonic beasts. Most of them were the sea demon clans that dominated the Endless Sea in the past. They had once fought a bloody battle with the dragon clan of the Four Seas. For example, the drunken whale incense that Cyrus had used in conjunction with the illusion was targeted at the whale clan. The whale clan was a powerful clan that was not inferior to the dragon clan of the Four Seas in terms of strength and size. However, the whale clan's consumption of food was also very terrifying. Sea areas like the Willowstone Sea could only feed one member of the whale clan even if the whole area gathered its strength. Some weaker sea areas didn't even have the ability to feed one member of the whale clan. The whale clan's population was even rarer than that of the dragon clan. This was the only reason why the whale clan lost to the dragon clan of the Four Seas and gave up the position of the overlord of the Endless Sea. In addition, the whale clan had a one-track mind. Therefore, the dragon clan of the Four Seas, who were afraid of their power, directly exterminated them. Perhaps there were still some descendants of the whale clan in the vast Endless Sea, but it was already difficult to maintain the population. They were no longer a threat to the rule of the dragon clan of the Four Seas. With a classic example in front of them, the dragon clan of the Four Seas naturally wouldn't repeat the same mistake. Therefore, the remaining evil dragon camp was not weak. Except for a few high-level members who knew the truth, most of the evil dragons were sincerely hostile to the dragon palace of the Four Seas. However, as the war progressed, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas also realized that even if the evil dragon camp was split, it would be useless. Because the aberrant wouldn't allow their existence, even if they had never done anything to fight against the aberrant. Painstakingly planned, but it was useless? How laughable was that? However, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas didn't expose this matter. Instead, they planned another way out. They planned to sacrifice some members of the dragon clan to delay the aberrant, so that the main members of the dragon clan of the Four Seas could retreat to the Tianwu continent to ensure the survival of the aberrant. At least, the evil dragon camp didn't know much about the aberrant, so it could be said that the information of the two sides was not equal from the beginning. The evil dragon camp treated the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas as a sacrifice and a selfless elder. However, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas treated the evil dragon camp as a stepping stone and a bait to attract the attention of the other sea demon clans. If they didn't take this opportunity to attack the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, would they wait to be played to death by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas? Supreme Dragon Head, there are 2 dragon bloodline demon beasts outside who want to see you. They claim to be former members of the 9 Sons of the Dragon. Their code names are Yazi and Fu Shi. We said a few perfunctory words and then came in to ask if you want to see them or not. An evil dragon that seemed to have the bloodline of the sea monkey ran in, not afraid of Lin Yuan's existence. Chapter 716. Former members of the 9 Sons of Dragon? Yazi and Fu Liang? What are they doing here? A.O. Siphon murmured to himself, the confusion in his eyes growing. Originally, Lin Yuan's previous words made his brain feel like it had been stirred into a paste. Now, a new problem had appeared before the problem was solved. The great dragon of the evil dragon camp was directly stunned. He even subconsciously turned his head and glanced at Lin Yuan, as if he had been fooled into thinking that he was lame. Lin Yuan looked indifferent and said indifferently, "The calculation of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas is good." Including Yazi and Fu Xia, a total of 7 members of the Dragon Palace participated in the destruction of the Lushur Sea area. 2 of them died during the escape process, and the whereabouts of the remaining 5 members of the Dragon Palace are unknown. Where do you think they went after escaping? Oh, Siphon only pondered for a moment this time, then said in a deep voice, "They caused a great disaster, which is equivalent to offending the Siren Guild and all the Siren clans that are hostile to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Then, their first reaction would be to return to the Dragon Palace, because the other forces would not dare to nor can they protect them. The only ones that can let them live are the behemoths that can wrestle with the other forces. Ao Siphon was not stupid. The reason why it was being played by Lin Yuan was that the information they had was not equal. Lin Yuan knew that the aberrations were the Great Old Ones, and he also knew what their purpose was. Although he did not have much contact with the Great Old Ones, Lin Yuan knew more about them than the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, which was fighting against them. Now, the news of the 7 sons of dragon wreaking havoc in the Willow Stone region had spread throughout the entire Deep Sea region under Cyrus' arrangement. Knowing the inside story, Ao Siphon's reaction was naturally very fast. After a while, Ao Siphon's face suddenly turned gloomy, and he said coldly, "What does the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas take my place for? These sons of dragon caused a great disaster, and they directly put me here. Should I clean up their mess for them? Supreme Dragon, why don't I go and chase them away?" The evil dragon who delivered the message also looked anxious. Although the evil dragon camp wasn't as powerful as the Sea Monster Guild and the Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas, it was still a famous force in the Endless Sea. Of course, it was well informed. Previously, it hadn't figured out what was going on. But now, it seemed that the Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas wanted them to take the blame. "Lin Yuan, you owe me an explanation." Ao Siphon looked coldly at Lin Yuan, his voice filled with killing intent. It was true that Long Jiuzi had wreaked havoc in the Willow Stone Sea region. However, those who were well informed knew that Long Jiuzi had gathered in the Willow Stone Sea region because an unknown water dragon demon beast had suddenly appeared in the Willow Stone Sea region. Moreover, it was highly valued by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. If Long Jiuzi had not seen Lin Yuan before, he might not have thought much of it. But after seeing Lin Yuan, Ao Siphon quickly realized that Lin Yuan was that mysterious water flood dragon. Lin Yuan must have some secrets. That was why the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas paid so much attention to him. More importantly, Lin Yuan had just come here to disturb Ao Siphon's mind, and then 2 former members of Long Jiuzi had come here. It was hard for Ao Siphon not to suspect that Lin Yuan did not have any plans in this matter. Even the appearance of the 2 former members of Long Jiuzi was probably part of Lin Yuan's plan. Especially the conversation before, he gave Ao Siphon just the right amount of time to think. Then, he deliberately made things mysterious to arouse Ao Siphon's curiosity. However, before Ao Siphon could ask, a subordinate came in to report that Yi and Fu Zi had come to see Ao Siphon. It was not that Lin Yuan didn't want to answer Ao Siphon's question, nor that Lin Yuan didn't give Ao Siphon time to think. It was Ao Siphon's subordinate who came in to report that the members of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas had come to see Ao Siphon. It was hard for Ao Siphon not to suspect that all this was deliberately arranged by Lin Yuan. However, where did Lin Yuan get the ability to influence the thoughts of the higher-ups of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas? I will give you a reasonable explanation, because my explanation has already come to you, isn't it? Lin Yuan smiled indifferently, as if he couldn't feel Ao Siphon's killing intent. No living creature, including himself, was willing to be schemed against by others. However, the world was like this. Everyone could unknowingly become a chess piece in the hands of others. Without knowing it, they could play their role in the chess game of others. Even those almighty beings were not necessarily an exception. You. What do you mean? Ao Siphon was startled again. Squinting its eyes, it asked. I can assure you that from today onwards, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas intends to share some information with you. However, this information absolutely has nothing to do with the aberration or the future situation of the Endless Sea. If I'm not wrong, they will ask you to protect it. Sigh. Before Lin Yuan could finish, Ao Siphon sneered and interrupted Lin Yuan. She said coldly, if the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas made a mistake, why should the evil dragon camp pay for it? It's true that I have taken in the evil dragon camp who made a mistake. However, why should I protect this kind of idiot who has brought disaster to the entire tribe? You will. Lin Yuan sighed and then said with a determined face, because they will tell you my identity. In addition to protecting them, they will also ask you to send your evil dragon subordinates to search for me in the entire endless sea. I can guarantee that since the internal division of your evil dragon camp, no cooperation has reached the scale of this time. Because the spies may have contacted the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, they will fully cooperate with this matter. As long as it is in order to search for me, as long as you open your mouth, you will understand what a real great dragon is like, not like now where everyone is doing their own thing. So? Siphon yawned and said with a disdainful face. What can the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas give me? Do they want all their spies to be loyal to me so that I can control the evil dragon camp one more time? Not necessarily. Lin Yuan smiled and shook his head. Even if they give you the authority, it's just a facade. As I've said before, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas has prepared a backup plan to deal with you. Thus, whether you control the evil dragon camp or a part of it, it doesn't matter to them. Then, Lin Yuan kept silent for a while. His smile gradually became bitter as he continued, they are sure that you can't refuse the order. The bargaining chip is me. Thus, the conversation between you two will be about the aberration. The Dragon Palace of the West Sea will also reveal the current situation to you. At that time, you won't hesitate to capture me in exchange for the last chance to survive. Chapter 717. Siphon's expression changed slightly, but there was no change in its eyes. It was as if the change in its expression was a performance made to match Lin Yuan's words. After a moment of silence, Siphon said slowly, what you mean is that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas has already made arrangements. We, the evil dragons who were seen as the hope of our race, have become the sacrificial lambs in the eyes of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. It is because of your appearance that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas made a concession and decided to accept us and give us a chance to live? That's generally correct, but there's one thing that's ridiculously wrong. Lin Yuan grinned and said with a smile, in this world, I'm afraid no one understands the aberrations better than me. Now that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas has realized that they are no match for us, they plan to retreat to the Tianwu continent. They want to borrow my power to plan a place for the dragon race of the Four Seas to reproduce. However, this is not a path to survival. It's just delaying the arrival of despair. The goal of the Great Old Ones was to destroy Lin Yuan's northern frontier. However, the new era that Lin Yuan started had already let countless people see the benefits. According to Zhang Xiu's information, the various empires had already begun to secretly implement the new laws of the northern frontier. They planned to use this to suppress the power of the aristocratic families and sects, ensuring the longevity of the imperial family. It was hard to say what the future would be like, but at least in this period, the new era was no longer opened by Lin Yuan alone. Even if the northern frontier was destroyed, the era was still on the path of evolution. Therefore, the goal of the Great Old Ones was never the northern frontier. From the moment they were born, they wanted to destroy the world. When everything was over, they would become ordinary creatures and reignite the fire of civilization, returning everything to the era they were familiar with. At that time, they would still be heroes, gods, and rulers. The other party was not a demonic beast that fought for territory, but the Great Old Ones that wanted to destroy the world. The strategy of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was to give up the endless sea, but the other party would definitely not stop. Retreat to the continent? In theory, it was possible. However, not long after, the aberrations of the entire endless sea would attack the continent crazily and finally destroy the world that was changing into a new era. Supreme Dragon Head, the two outside are waiting anxiously. Another evil dragon who came in to report muttered softly. However, his gaze was always on Lin Yuan. A cold light flashed in his eyes, emitting an ominous aura. Boom! The second Sin dragon that came in to report didn't even have time to open its mouth before its head was smashed by Lin Yuan's tail. That's why I said that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas is rotten to the core. Without a single nirvana of destruction, they will never learn what reverence is. Lin Yuan withdrew his blood-stained tail and looked at Siphon again, saying, Supreme Dragon Head shouldn't mind if I teach your subordinates a lesson, right? After he said that, the monkey-like evil dragon shrunk its head and didn't dare to look straight at Lin Yuan. The evil dragon that was killed by Lin Yuan did not have a high cultivation base. At most, it was at the 4th level of the River Lord realm. If it was a demonic beast that grew up on the mainland, it would never dare to stare at a higher level with that kind of malicious gaze. Survival was an instinct engraved in the blood of all living beings. Just like how beasts would scatter their excrement in their territory to make weaker creatures take a detour, only creatures that wanted to die or those with low intelligence would provoke existences that were far stronger than themselves. This rule of survival didn't seem to apply to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. In other words, they blindly believed that they were backed by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Even if the demonic beasts without any background were stronger than them, they would still have to be respectful to them. This was the result of the abnormal strategy of the dragon race of the Four Seas. It was the mentality that the members of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas were nurtured by countless subordinates of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. However, this rule didn't apply to Lin Yuan. Therefore, this sin dragon died before it even had a chance to speak. A husky bared its fangs at a tiger and got what it deserved. Lin Yuan, you've gone too far. Ao Siphon glanced at Lin Yuan coldly and said, even if you're a spy raised by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, it's not up to you to discipline. What? Are you tired of being the Blackwater Dragon King of the Northern Frontier and want to join my Sin Dragon camp? If you are willing to join us, not to mention a spy, even if you want to kill one of my trusted subordinates, as long as the reason is right, I will accept it. But now, as an outsider, you have to give me an explanation, don't you think? Don't be pretentious with me. I won't tell you what you shouldn't know. It won't do you any good to know. Lin Yuan looked at Ao Siphon and let out a long breath. He said in a low voice, the problem of the aberrations must be solved. It doesn't only involve the dragon race of the Four Seas. If they are allowed to grow, the entire world will die. You don't want to become one of those weird things, do you? What exactly are the aberrations? Ao Siphon seemed to not understand Lin Yuan's words and asked again with a cold face. Opportunity. A chance for you to rule the dragon race of the Four Seas. The tip of Lin Yuan's tail gently touched the ground, and he said indifferently, not only you, I will publicize the problem of the mutants to the entire Endless Sea. Believe me, running away will never solve the problem, it will only make the problem bigger and bigger. Either you cooperate with me to get rid of the mutants, and I will help you plan and let you get everything you want, or we will all go our separate ways and play the game together. Harumph. After keeping silent for a while, Ao Siphon snorted and said coldly, you go and hide in the backyard first. I will go out and meet Yazi and Fu Qiu. If what they say is different from what you have expected, you will know what pain is. The Dragon Palace of the Four Seas had many spies in the evil dragon camp. For example, the second evil dragon who had broken in to report. Thus, the news of Lin Yuan's appearance here couldn't be hidden. Not only did Yazi and Fu Qiu know that Lin Yuan was here, but the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas had also received the news. In Ao Siphon's eyes, Lin Yuan was only at the late stage of the River Lord realm. He couldn't even defeat the early Beast King realm warriors. Naturally, he didn't pose any threat. Thus, it thought that Lin Yuan was gambling. He was gambling that Ao Siphon would stand on his side. Once there was a mistake in any part, Lin Yuan would become a prisoner instantly. As you wish. Lin Yuan's face was still expressionless. It seemed that he had a card up his sleeve, but it also seemed that he was crazily staking everything on this one throw. Ao Siphon could not see what Lin Yuan was thinking simply from his expression and look. She could only snort coldly again before walking out of the door. She was ready to meet Yazi and Fu Shi, the two former members of the 9 Sons of the Dragon clan who had caused a huge disaster. Chapter 718. Lin Yuan turned around and swam, quickly disappearing into the shadows. Be it the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas or the Siren Guild, the entire endless sea would not be able to escape this calamity. However, this was also good. There was no need for the dragon palace of the four seas to continue existing. A few clans of the four seas dragon race had inherited the name of the primeval world's dragon race, but they were nothing more than dog meat on the banquet table. There could only be one dragon palace in this world. It was the Blackwater Dragon Palace. Lin Yuan was no longer the reincarnator who was not even used to being a demon beast. Even if he did not have the protection of the demon court behind him, Lin Yuan did not care at all. This was because there was an even more terrifying existence behind him. Those hosts that came from all over the universe had many ways to affect the operation of this world. For example, the monster that was completely made of mutated insects and called itself Tao Tai. Perhaps it was an accident, or perhaps it was some kind of deployment, but it made Lin Yuan understand one thing: he was never alone. On the other side, Cyrus looked at the hundreds of gray-scaled flood dragon people scattered in the willow waters. The corner of its mouth twitched slightly, but it did not know how to describe its current feelings. Only 3 days had passed since Lin Yuan left the Lushur Sea area. The 4 gray-scaled flood dragon people had reproduced on their own and created a tribe of more than 100 people. Such a terrifying reproductive ability even made Cyrus secretly fearful. After the 4 steps of mating, pregnancy, birth, and growth, a gray-scaled flood dragon person would grow into an adult every 4 hours on average. Even though they were weak, probably only at the early stage of the wisdom realm, what truly shocked Cyrus was the terrifying adaptability of this clan. Their reproduction speed became slower and slower, and the growth of their embryos also slowed down. However, the gray-scaled flood dragon people that were born became more and more powerful. The newest batch of gray-scaled flood dragon people even had strength comparable to their parents when they were born. A large number of the first gray-scaled flood dragon people had already died of old age. Apart from Flood Dragon 1 who did not participate in the reproduction, the other 3 gray-scaled flood dragon people had already died of old age. Clearly, this was a clan with a strong reproductive ability but a relatively short lifespan. No, maybe I'm wrong. Cyrus suddenly muttered as it observed the gray-scaled flood dragon people's reproduction. It was not that this clan's lifespan was too short. Instead, this clan used some special method to sacrifice their lifespan in exchange for rapid evolution. Only Flood Dragon 1, the first generation of gray-scaled flood dragon people, did not burn its lifespan. It was guiding the next generation of gray-scaled flood dragon people to begin their cultivation and guide the later generations to worship a supreme god. Cyrus was to ask Flood Dragon 1, to find out. It was to discover that the Flood Dragon 1's god was the Black Jiao it previously. How is that possible? Cyrus sneered and mocked. We are all demonic beasts with the ability to cultivate. Naturally, we should know that there are no gods in this world. In the eyes of those mortals who are not qualified to cultivate, we are powerful gods. No. To define to the Flood Dragon to be. Why not? Cyrus retorted with an exaggerated expression. You shouldn't call the Black Flood Dragon a god. You should call it Father. I can feel the same blood flowing in your veins. As for similar examples, don't you know about the noble families of humans and the clans of monsters? Aren't they examples? Flood Dragon 1 stared at Cyrus in silence. The coldness on its face made it look like an ice sculpture. A father and a mother giving birth to a child? Of course, this was the creation of life. It was the reproduction instinct of every clan. However, Lin Yuan's creation was not like that. They were merely creations of Lin Yuan's bloodline, but they were not Lin Yuan's children. This was something Flood Dragon 1 knew since it was born. It was information that God had stuffed into its head when it created it. Forget it. I'm not going to argue with you. Seeing that Flood Dragon 1 did not answer, Cyrus said uninterestedly, You can call the Black Jiao whatever you want, but in Willow Rock waters, I hope you can restrain your faith a little. Your father. God doesn't have a good reputation in the endless sea. If we want to achieve his goal, we must first deny our relationship with him. Otherwise, we will attract terrifying enemies. You and your clan will all die. Flood Dragon 1's lips moved, but it did not utter a single word. After a moment of silence, it spoke to Cyrus in the common language, "I'll restrain my faith in God. Don't worry." As a fervent believer of Lin Yuan, Flood Dragon 1 would never abandon its faith no matter what. If it knew that there was an enemy of God in the world, it would not hesitate to draw its sword. However, things were different now. It had a special mission to fulfill. It had to help its God build a territory. Before that, it could only endure the piety and fervor in its heart and follow Cyrus' command obediently because that was what its God had told it before he left. Cyrus nodded in satisfaction and said in a deep voice, "Also, after some time, the reconstruction of Willow Rock Waters will be completed. The monsters in the nearby waters will not let go of this chance to invade Willow Rock Waters, so they will definitely come looking for trouble. I don't need you to fight the high-level monsters, but I'll leave the cannon fodder-like monsters to you and your clan to deal with. Is that okay?" "Of course. We'll make sure that no one who invades God's territory will return alive." Flood Dragon 1 nodded. Even in the Endless Sea, where the upper limit of power far exceeded that of the Sky Martial continent, there were still low-level monsters, although most of them were just cannon fodders. During a war, these cannon fodders were the first to charge into the enemy lines. However, Willow Rock Waters had just experienced a disaster, so the weak naturally did not have the chance to survive. Even if Cyrus did not want to use the gray-scaled Flood Dragon people, it could not find a second force that could do the job. For the gray-scaled Flood Dragon people, this was a great opportunity to improve themselves. Although they could not directly increase their attributes through killing like Lin Yuan, they could hone their battle experience. When the time was right, Lin Yuan could increase their abilities by injecting the power of incense into them. There were no bottlenecks to speak of. As long as their experience reached the required level, it was not impossible for their cultivation to reach the Demon King realm overnight. If Lin Yuan had that much incense power and his clan had that much battle experience. However, in the eyes of other demons, they were descendants of the Dragon Clan. It could be said that the benefits of the Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas would not be shared with them, but if something happened to the Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas, all the Sin Dragons would be affected. Therefore, the Sin Dragons would think of ways to earn merits to show that they had realized their mistakes and were willing to repent. Only those with enough merits would be removed from the register of evil dragons and become a member of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas again. Hua, Ao Siphon chuckled and said with a face full of disdain, "Then, what about the Dragon King's decree? The aberrations are growing stronger day by day. The front line is tight. Even the powerful Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas cannot transfer manpower. However, I heard that there is a demon beast in the Sky Martial continent that does not respect the Dragon Clan and calls himself the Blackwater Dragon King. The ancestral dragon does not like him, so he sent a decree from the Dragon God Palace, ordering us to capture the Blackwater Dragon King. Not long ago, the Blackwater Dragon King was tricked into the Endless Sea by the West Sea Dragon King. We went to the Willowstone Sea to capture him, but we did not expect to fall into his trap and be labeled as the one who destroyed the Willowstone Sea. The Dragon King was furious and ordered us to capture the Black Jiao to atone for our sins. Fu Gui put his hands behind his back and said arrogantly, "Ao Siphon, I respect you as a senior, so I specially came here. You should know the weight of the ancestral dragon's decree in the Dragon God Palace, right? If you are willing to help us, the day that the Black Jiao is brought to justice will be the day your names are removed from the register of evil dragons and you return to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas." Ao Siphon was not moved. She still looked at Yazi and said indifferently, "You know that's not what I meant when I asked about the decree. I mean, if you want me to protect you, you have to show me proof, right? You can't just say that you are following the Dragon King's order and you are following the Dragon King's order, right?" Then, Ao Siphon paused and squeezed out a mocking smile on her face. She said coldly, "I can also say that you have caused a great disaster and don't dare to return to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. You want to deceive me and make the evil dragon camp and the sea monster guild start a war. You, Fu Gui was choked by Ao Sifen's words. Her face was so gloomy that it looked like water was about to drip out. Yazi spat to the side and said with a gloomy face, Ao Sifen, who do you think you are? You are just an evil dragon. We are following the Dragon King's orders. We are not here to look at your face. We are here to look at the Dragon King's trust. Are you worthy? Hee hee. Ao Sifen sneered and stepped forward. He walked directly in front of Yazi and said coldly, what boldness. As expected of Yazi, the second of the 9 sons of the Dragon Clan. It seems that you haven't wasted these 50 years. Humph, Yazi snorted and had no intention of backing down. It continued to stare at Ao Sifen. In the generation 50 years ago, Ao Sifen and that person appeared out of nowhere and directly stepped on it and Shionyo. They were known as the Supreme Heaven's Pride of the Dragon Clan. They were so famous that even the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas had to show a kind face. To put it bluntly, it was not that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas could not protect them. It was just that after weighing the gains and losses, they felt that there was no need to start a war with the Sea Demon Guild to protect them. If it was Ao Sifen or that person, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas would most likely grit their teeth and forcefully suppress this matter. Although it was not the real Yazi, it had the records of the Dragon Clan's secret treasure. It also knew the real Yazi's character very well. Although it was not the kind of person who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance, it could not be a person who stepped on it for 50 years. Even now, it had fallen into an evil dragon and still had the protection of the Dragon Clan's elders. In the end, this was jealousy. Ao Sifen, how powerful is the Dragon King of the Four Seas? Looking at the entire endless sea, is there anyone who dares to impersonate the Dragon King? I have already said before that this time, we came to ask for help. If you don't want to, you can just reject us directly. Why do you have to be so aggressive? Fu Ji's expression was also not very good. He did not expect that Ao Sifen would dare to act like this. It was as if he did not put the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas in his eyes. Not only did the preemptive strike not work, but it also had the opposite effect. Now that Ao Sifen insisted that he wanted to see the West Sea Dragon King's trust, how could they take it out? I wish everyone a new year with no regrets in the past. The new year will still be in full bloom. Chapter 720. What does it have to do with you when the elders are talking? Ao Sifen turned his head and glanced at Fu Shi contemptuously, then looked at Yazi's face again. Yazi took a deep breath and growled, Ao Sifen, I advise you not to go too far. How can Dragon King's trust be granted so easily? You want to see Dragon King's trust as soon as you open your mouth. That's too much. I want to see Dragon King's trust is too much. Ao Sifen's mocking expression was even more intense. He said in a deep voice, then when you came over, you wanted my evil dragon camp to clean up your mess, take the blame, and even help you to make enemies with that black Jiao. What is this called? Pa. It was almost in a flash. Ao Sifen and Yazi had already punched each other. Ao Sifen took 3 steps back, but Yazi didn't move at all. The reef he was sitting on cracked inch by inch. In the blink of an eye, it turned into powder and drifted away with the undercurrent at the bottom of the sea. For a moment, it was impossible to tell who was superior between the two. However, even so, it still made Fu Zhu, who was at the side, suck in a breath of cold air. Long Jiuzi was one of the top combatants in the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Even if he didn't go on missions, the resources he usually enjoyed were the best in the entire Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Ao Sifen was an evil dragon. Although it had a great reputation in the past 50 years, it could only survive in the gaps between the various sea demon clans. Naturally, it couldn't manage a sea region that produced spiritual items. In addition, it had to support the evil dragons under its command. It probably had to fork out a lot of its own cultivation resources. Aptitude was the factor that determined whether a monster or a cultivator could reach a certain level, but it was definitely not the only factor. Abundant spiritual items were the most important thing. With the gap of 50 years of resources between the two, Yazi's cultivation progress in a day was probably more than 10 times that of Ao Sifin. But in that punch just now, both sides were actually evenly matched. What kind of terrifying aptitude was this? You've made some progress. You didn't waste the resources of the Dragon Palace. Ao Sifin wasn't annoyed. He calmly withdrew his fist and sneered, however, I thought you had the capital to stand proudly in the world after all these years. It turns out that you're just a so-so. So, you should treat me the same way you treated me 50 years ago. Do you understand? On what basis? Yazi's face was full of resistance, but he also retracted his fist and asked in a stern voice. Because I am stronger than you. Ao Sifin also responded sternly, but his vertical pupils were filled with coldness. Those who were observant would be able to see that although Ao Sifin had taken 3 steps back, her fist was still intact. On the other hand, although Yazi did not move at all, as if all the force had been transferred to the reef under it, its fist was constantly trembling. One could even vaguely see the blood splashing out when its skin and flesh were torn open. However, the dragon's physique was tyrannical, and the injury was instantly healed. Thus, it did not reveal a bloody fist with torn skin and flesh. So, it wasn't a tie. Fu Qian's expression changed slightly, and he sighed in his heart. Other than Ao Sifin taking the initiative to protect him, Fu Xi even considered activating the spies of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas to control Ao Sifin and take away his authority to control the evil dragon camp. However, such a scheme could only be dismissed with a smile at this moment. It was not difficult to control the evil dragon camp. The spies of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas could do it, but the prerequisite was to capture Ao Sifin. Otherwise, with Ao Sifin's prestige, he could make those evil dragons who did not belong to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas to have evil intentions. By then, there would be another bloody battle. Perhaps the Sea Monster Guild, the Outer Sea Monsters, and the subordinates of the Dragon Palace would all help Ao Sifin to completely crush the power of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Yazi's face twitched slightly. After pondering for a moment, he gritted his teeth and said, "Please, save us." A satisfied look flashed across Ao Sifin's face as soon as she finished speaking. Although the Sea Monster Guild is powerful, it is also a loose organization. It is not difficult to capture you too. As long as we pay a certain amount of benefits, we can hire a large number of experts to hunt you down. However, it is difficult for the Sea Monster Guild to bear the cost of waging a war with the evil dragon camp. So, if I help you, you will be safe. As long as you don't seek death and stay in the territory of the evil dragon camp, they can't do anything to you. Ao Sifin grinned and said, "Everything in this world comes with a price. The Sea Monster Guild is afraid of me, so they will put pressure on me, which will make the situation of the evil dragon camp more difficult. So, I am very curious. What kind of bargaining chips do you have in your hands? Why do you have the confidence to let me protect you?" Yazi kept silent and took half a step back. In terms of fighting power, he could easily crush Fu Chu. However, he was not good at this kind of thing that required using his brain. Fu Chu pondered for a moment and looked around. Seeing more and more sea monsters gathering, he coughed to refresh himself and said softly, "We have enough bargaining chips. However, this is a serious matter. Let's go into the yard and talk. We don't want the walls to have ears and ruin our plan. Isn't it just that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas can't resist the pressure of the mutant, so you want to go to the Sky Marshal continent? You want all the beasts in the Endless Sea to be your barrier to stop the mutant while you hide somewhere to recuperate. You want to take back your territory in the Endless Sea? If you dare to do that, why are you afraid of others talking about it? You want to capture this king and use the forces in the northern frontier to get a territory in the Sky Marshal continent for the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Originally, you didn't want to bring the evil dragon camp. But now, because you can't send people, you have to borrow the evil dragon camp's power. That's why you changed your face and came here. Lin Yuan's lazy voice arose. He mocked, aren't the dragon palace of the four seas strong? Why don't you have your arrogant aura like before, asking for this king's treasure? Black Jiao, you dare to hide here? Yazi suddenly roared and stared at Lin Yuan, who appeared behind Ao Sifan. If it wasn't for the news of Lin Yuan's sudden appearance, it wouldn't have led Long Jiuzi to the Willowstone Sea. In the end, it was schemed against by Cyrus. Now, it couldn't find a place to stay in the endless sea. Now, Lin Yuan dared to appear in front of it. Kill. Boundless killing intent leaked out. Lin Yuan sneered as if he didn't care at all. Boom. An aura that wasn't inferior to Yazi's suddenly burst out from Ao Sifan's body. Blackwater Dragon King is my honored guest. Him coming to my residence as a guest is giving me, Ao Sifan, face. How can I allow you to be so presumptuous? It seems that the battle back then didn't scare the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, right? Ao Sifan was furious. His eyes were also bloodshot as he stared at Yazi fiercely. Chapter 721. The hatred emitted from Ao Sifan's body was not the slightest bit inferior to Yazi. Yazi just wanted to vent its anger on Lin Yuan. No matter what, it was a beast that had lived for more than 70 years. Although it hadn't learned the cunning of human beings, it had experienced a lot. Of course, it wouldn't look at everything in this world as an ignorant person. How long had Black Jiao been in the endless sea? How long had it been since he came out? How long had Cyrus concealed its identity? The two of them could have met and colluded, but before that, they couldn't have known each other. Thus, Cyrus' plan in the Willowstone Sea was aimed at the dragon palaces of the Four Seas. Its purpose was to provoke the war between the Sea Monster Guild and the dragon palaces of the Four Seas. Lin Yuan was just an important supporting role in this drama. Of course, there was no irreconcilable hatred. Even if there was, it was aimed at Cyrus. However, Ao Sifan's resentment was aimed at the dragon palaces of the Four Seas. What was the cruelest thing in the world? It was to give others hope and then crush it with your own hands. 36 years ago, Ao Sifan became famous in one battle. He led the evil dragons to defeat the dragon palace of the Four Seas and took over the territory of the evil dragon camp. The evil dragon camp didn't wander around the sea area like rootless duckweeds anymore. Although the dragon palace of the Four Seas had been planting spies in the evil dragon camp and cultivating the root of the disaster, no one dared to say that the dragon palace of the Four Seas could ignore Ao Sifan's anger and start another war with him. In fact, for so many years, the dragon palaces of the Four Seas had always been kind to Ao Sifan. They didn't dare to have a dispute with him. They only dared to use a soft knife to cut off his flesh. Ao Sifan was a hero of a generation, so he could see through this. However, it was just like Song Jiang in the later period of the water margin. Ao Sifan clearly understood that although the evil dragon camp was strong, they were still rootless duckweeds. Their real position in the endless sea wasn't even comparable to some of the stronger species of the dragon palaces. That was why Ao Sifan sat and watched the dragon palaces of the Four Seas trying to recruit and assimilate the evil dragon's camp. He didn't mention any small disputes. He wanted to return to the dragon palaces of the Four Seas one day and use his own ideas to change the dragon palaces of the Four Seas. At least, he wanted the dragon palaces of the Four Seas to no longer despise the beasts without the dragon bloodline. He wanted to unify the endless sea. However, he did not expect his sincerity to be so laughable in the eyes of the dragon palace of the Four Seas. Unknowingly, it and its evil dragon faction had become abandoned pawns in the eyes of the dragon palace of the Four Seas. Laughable, lamentable, lamentable. Black Jiao, what nonsense are you talking about? Fu Gao shouted and said coldly, you are the blood descendant of the dragon race of the Four Seas, yet you don't want to be the ancestor of the dragon race. How dare you say that the dragon race is plotting to steal your treasure? Do you know how powerful the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas is? What you have is nothing but a laughable toy in our eyes. At this moment, Fu Su hated Lin Yuan to the core. This black arrow simply did not choose his words carefully and did not even care about the consequences. Was the aberrant a topic that could be made public? To put it bluntly, even the powerful Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was defeated by the aberrant. They had no choice but to consider entering the Tianwu continent to avoid the aberrant's sharp edge. However, this was an internal matter of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas and could not be made public. Once the other demonic beasts in the Endless Sea discovered the terror of the aberrant, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas would be put on fire. At that time, all the escape routes of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas would be blocked. The entire dragon race of the Four Seas would have to fight the aberrant to the death. Even if they won, the dragon race of the Four Seas would be reduced to the lowest level of power in the Tianwu continent for a long time in the future. They might not even be comparable to the current northern frontier. More importantly, if Black Jiao was willing to cooperate with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, both sides could return to the Tianwu continent together. Although the northern frontier would definitely be angered by the powers of the Tianwu continent, they could also gain the goodwill of the dragon race of the Four Seas. Both sides working together might not necessarily lead to death. However, if these words were to be spread, before the chaos of the aberrant was resolved, Black Jiao himself would not be able to return to the Tianwu continent. This was King courting death. He even wanted to drag the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas down with him. Since all the seniors are paying attention to this, I will say these few words to fulfill my responsibility as a dragon bloodline demonic beast. I will say what the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas does not dare to say. At the same time, I will also stop the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas from thinking of escaping. Although I know the details of the aberrant, it is not convenient for me to tell you. The only thing I can say is that the aberrant's original intention is not to become the new overlord of the Endless Sea. They are plotting to conquer the entire world. If the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas retreats, none of you will be able to escape the fate of becoming monsters today. And even if the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas can escape to the Tianwu continent and be accepted by the powers of the Tianwu continent, they will not be able to escape the attacks of the aberrant. The longer these monsters are eliminated, the greater the danger. After today, I hope that all of you will have a better understanding of the aberrant. Do not think that just because you do not participate in the war against the aberrant, you will be able to take a step further under their rule or maintain your current life. If you do not believe my words, you can send people to the front lines of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas to take a look and ask if this is the case. Lin Yuan bowed his head and said in a sincere tone, as long as the hidden danger of the aberrant is not eliminated, Black Jiao will not leave the Endless Sea. I hope that all of you seniors can bear witness to this. The demon beasts of the Endless Sea were not fools. Although the Sea Demon Guild was an idle organization, this kind of idleness also gave them a very powerful source of information. The news of Yazi and Fu Shi's appearance today would definitely not be hidden from the Sea Demon Guild, and even more so from the experts of the Sea Demon Guild who were paying attention to this matter. Although on the surface it was Yazi, Fu Shi, Ao Siphon, and Lin Yuan who were here, in the dark, who knew how many spies of the powers were hidden. Some of the experts might even come to a place not far from here to secretly investigate. He wanted to make this matter big, he wanted to stir up this pot of water. With his own strength, it was impossible to fight against the old ruler of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Even if he forcefully pulled the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, they might not be the opponent of the other party. He could only pull all the demon beasts of the Endless Sea onto the warship, only then could he guarantee a 50% chance of winning this war. In addition, the reconstruction of the Willowstone Sea area was about to be completed. The other sea demon forces would not let go of this fat meat. He did not need to provide any resources, and he did not need to fight against the super-strong demon beasts. How could the demon beasts refuse? Making this matter big and attracting the attention of the Endless Sea, it could also share some of the pressure of the Willowstone Sea area. Otherwise, before this nail of his could enter the Endless Sea, it would be a wedding dress for the other sea demon forces. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.